because they can't speak there.
Thank you. We're going to get started. There we go. I love that. I love that. Okay, welcome. Tuesday, June 19th, Select Board meeting. I'm John Martin, Francine Tishman, and Jim Labrie to my left, Charlie Kanicki, and Rini Groden to my right. It's being recorded and also fed live for your viewing pleasure later on. If you could help us with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thanks everyone for coming. Okay, we're going to start with the appointments. Conservation Committee, Joy Rizzo is a reappointment, and Anthony Zaharias is an appointment for a new member.
And Anthony should be here.
Anthony's right there. Hi, how are you? Good. Do we have any paperwork for the folks in the packet? Okay. Let me get to it.
I make a motion to appoint.
Before we do that, would you mind if Anthony just came up? He's new. I'd just like to
All
give
right,
him.
you want to put him through it? Go
I'd
ahead.
just like to give him a minute to introduce himself and.
How you doing tonight?
Good. You.
But yeah, I'm volunteering to serve on the Conservation Commission.
Great.
I've got quite a bit of experience with wetlands. I did previously work for Mass DEP in the wetlands program for about 4 years, and currently I'm an environmental scientist with the Air Force at Westover. And so
I know Marla Hank is looking forward to you joining. She says you're going to bring a lot of experience, so we appreciate your
I'd like to think
volunteering.
so.
There she is right there. And if you know Marla, that's out of character. So we appreciate your volunteering.
You're welcome.
Okay. Do you want to go with your motion now?
I make a motion to appoint.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I just have just one question. I mean, I appreciate it, and I think that's awesome that I noticed you're from Westfield, and as long as this is okay with our bylaw, I'm happy with it, but
Yeah, this is.
just asking the question.
Yeah, my understanding, and Marla, you can correct me, is it's perfectly appropriate for somebody outside the town to be on the Conservation Committee?
We have no town bylaws. I checked with Jimmy earlier, checked with the state. It's clear that anyone, who lives anywhere can be on the Conservation Commission. But when you have someone who lives right up Route 10, who is the most highly qualified person I have ever seen, looking around and finding an opening and saying, "How could I join you?" I personally feel the appropriate answer is, "Oh, please, thank you." Yes.
Oh, please, thank you.
Very good. You seem well qualified, that's for
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And one clarification, would this be for a 3-year term? Starting
3-year term,
July
yes.
1st and ending
Yes,
June
please.
30th, 2021?
Welcome, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oops, I'm sorry.
Town clerk had something.
I was going to ask, for clarification, are you appointing him as a commissioner member or an associate member? In the past, if you don't reside in town, you're an associate member, for
But I-
whatever difference that makes.
I mean, I don't see any reason not to have a full member if, because what Marla confirmed is that he can be a full member.
Right. In the past, we had associates to handle, to help us out doing things. but
Right.
We need a full voting member.
I see.
And since he will be replacing Bob Barcombe, whose term is ending and is not seeking reappointment, this is the appropriate time, so it is a full voting member.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Janine, appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, number 2, Finance Committee appointment, Doreen Bashista. She has her application here. Now,
Did you guys vote on Joy?
yeah, we did both of them together.
Okay, that was.
Yeah, I just brought Anthony up because he was new and
Yeah, that was not clear to me either.
It wasn't clear. Maybe you want to,
wasn't clear to you?
No, it was not.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to reappoint Joy Rizos.
Thank you.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
now it's official.
Also a 3-year?
Yes.
As a full member.
Okay, back to Finance Committee, Doreen Bashista. Application is in order. Is Doreen here?
And Doreen is here.
Would you like to say anything or introduce yourself, or? Hi.
Can you come up to the podium, though, and speak to your interest and experience in that sort of thing?
During Bishista, 65 Pleasant Street, I don't know if I have to say that. I heard there was an opening and willing to help out. I have a bachelor's in leadership and organizational skills. We have our own family business in town that I help run and do things too.
You have your master's degree in early childhood?
Yeah,
Great.
I teach.
I think you'd make a great addition. Can we
Can I
have a motion?
Francine had a
I just wanted to ask a question. I mean, I was on the Finance Committee,
Yeah.
and as was John. The time commitment is almost as much as it is being on the Select Board. I just want to be sure that you understand that and you're going to be able to participate to that level.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
no problem. My kids are all grown up and
I have a
You're looking
question.
for something to do, yeah.
I have a question. You're currently serving on the Norris School Committee, right?
yes.
Yeah. So is there any bylaw or understanding, formal or informal, about overseeing the Finance Committee and the budget of the Norris School?
Good question.
'Cause I know that there was an applicant, there was somebody who was a write-in candidate, and he was on another committee, and he was prevented from being elected on the Finance Committee because he was on another board in town. So that's my concern, if you're overseeing the budget for Norris, to then also be in the Finance Committee.
Okay. All right, I was on the bylaw committee, and Janine is here. Why doesn't she speak to that? Can you? Okay, okay. Because we were in the process of making some changes, and whether or not those changes have actually gone into effect yet, it would be a matter of her records.
I think when it came up before, it was a Finance Committee member, Michael Rosenberg to be exact, and it was the temporary committee to elect the town administrator or choose finalist, which doesn't oversee budget. It's, that was also an ad hoc committee.
But what I remember is that you can't be on another elected board or committee if you're on the Finance Committee. So that's what we're going to have Janine clarify. Yeah, you don't have to stand up
No.
there. Feel free to,
Thank you.
yeah. Okay, while we're waiting for Janine, why don't we just go on to the next one? We'll come back to it. Number 3 is Ad hoc Open Space Review Committee, Diane Fetterman, member. We were going to do that last time, but she was just needed to fill out her application, I believe. That's correct. So
Actually,
we're all set on that.
She just wasn't here in person, so
Is that it?
that's
Okay.
what delayed it.
Okay. Yep, she's been to all the meetings that we've had.
I'll make a motion to appoint Diana Fetterman to the Open Space Review Committee.
And I'll second.
Is there any discussion?
It's Diana.
Diana, I got it here, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks, Diana. Janine, come back in, no?
It's gonna be a few minutes.
Okay. Miscellaneous appointments, what do we have, Ed?
Should have a list here,
I saw the list.
and
I suspect it's this.
they're all one-year
I
appointments,
missed,
and it's John Wortman as ambulance coordinator for 1 year, term to expire, these would all expire 6/30/2019. John Wortman as Civil Defense Deputy Director, John Wortman as Emergency Management Director Assistant, Thomas Quinlan as Inspector Building Commission Zoning Enforcement, Thomas Sears, Inspector Plumbing and Gas, Anthony Lowren, Inspector Plumbing and Gas Alternate, James Fisher, Electrical Inspector, Ronald Bednars, Electrical Inspector Alternate, Jonathan Flagg is Inspector Building Commissioner Alternate, and then Gerald Paquette Jr. as Veteran Service Officer. And Well, I skipped it on purpose because Mr. Furry would really like us to find someone else to fill that position.
I'm looking at this, Ed, it said term expires, and several of them are June of 2017.
Yes, it appears that either the records or they were not appointed officially during 2018. So we're taking care of that right now.
So this is for one-year terms, starting July 1, 17, going through 6/30/18, correct?
Starting
No.
7/1/18 going to 6/30/19.
You're right.
I know you're testing me, John.
I'm still in last year. Okay, so one-year terms. Any questions before we take a motion, or
No questions.
do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? No?
Yes.
Okay.
I see the emergency manager assistant. What about the emergency manager? That appointment was a few months ago, which, I know who it was, but are we gonna run that concurrent with the rest of them?
Well, that was a life appointment, I thought.
What was the term you were appointed, Charlie?
I honestly don't remember.
Okay. So,
It wasn't on the master list, but
okay.
I mean, I'm just thinking that might be advantageous to have them all at the same time
Well-
instead of having this one appointment floating out there.
Okay. So let's take a vote on these, and we'll see what Ed comes back with. Any other discussion?
Yeah, just a quick one. I believe the inspectors all need to be licensed or continuing education credits and so on and so forth. That's all accounted for in the budget? Okay.
Yeah, and these look like
And
they're
it's
all
for the
reappointments.
actual inspector and the alternate.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Hearings none, selectmen reports, number 5. Rini, would you like to start?
Yep. Council of Aging went to a meeting last Wednesday, I believe. It's very busy, end of the year. Actually, the Friends of the COA had a wonderful luncheon over at Kona Park. It was an absolutely beautiful day, and it was very well attended. Great food from Hamels, so that was nice. That was the Friends. I'm not sure if there's anything else from COA. Went to a community preservation meeting. That was nice to be a part of that group. And I guess we'll just give an update on the open space, Glendale Road, when that's on the agenda specifically. I don't know if there's, and then you're addressing other issues, so I'll withhold that. And then Conservation Commission last night. Yeah, just the changes in this staffing, committees, some updates on the barn and the roof. Nothing really to report, but they're working on that. And Marla, anything else? I think that's... Yeah, there's two seats available, right? Yes. Since Tony filled that one, yep. So 2 seats available on conservation. I think that's probably it.
So anybody interested for conservation out there should contact Marla or Ed.
If you're interested in doing any trail maintenance or anything else on a volunteer basis that might not be, the every couple of weeks meeting, please be sure to speak up. They always need people to help with trails.
Thanks. Charlie?
I've been away for over a week, so.
Okay. Francine?
Yeah, I attended the Hampshire Regional High School Committee meeting on June 11th. It was my first time at visiting that committee, and I was really enlightened on lots of different levels in terms of the kinds of issues that schools are dealing with. I won't, go into detail now, but I have to commend them for addressing head-on, I think, the issues that we're all reading about in the newspapers. So I did meet the new superintendent. His name is Aaron Osborne. He's starting July 1. Craig Jurgensen is leaving as of the end of this month. There was a presentation by the library on the new 3D printer that the school acquired. It's an amazing piece of technology, and I think which was most impressive to me is how they're integrating the new technology into the curriculum for all the subjects across the board for students, and then helping students transition from Norris in the library and using the technology and the resources of the library to begin to develop their research and skills and so forth. So it was a pretty impressive presentation. What I brought along, I'm sorry I didn't get it to you in advance, but a copy of their budget report. There's one for each of you. I know it's June, but we still don't have a clear picture on how they're going to end up the year, because apparently they're still in the insurance enrollment period. So until they get those numbers and see who changes from what plan to what plan, we're not going to know what the bottom line looks like. But at least that's an interim report for everyone. So thank you.
Okay, Jim, do you have anything?
Yeah, the planning board met, and we were discussing, we have a model bylaw for the medical marijuana we're working on, and we have a rough draft of the model bylaw for the recreational. So when we get through that, we'll be holding public hearings.
Do you have a rough time frame?
Not at this point. The model bylaw on the recreational was very rough at this point. There's a few things they're finalizing. We're working with the Pioneer Valley Planning, so might be a couple months. I mean, it's a guess.
Okay.
The town meeting vote was 6 months, wasn't it, Jim? December.
Yeah, we have until the end of the year, correct. So hopefully, it would be nice if we could get that on the special town meeting coming up, if we could work that together. So.
Thanks. Ed's not back, so we'll skip town administrator report for now. He needs to be here for 7.
Here he is.
There he is. What'd you find out, Ed?
On Charlie's appointments, they're good through 2020, it's a multi-year appointment.
Okay.
And then Janine had a response that we don't want to hear on the other.
So that takes care of that one. We're down to number 6, Ed, town administrator report.
Oh, geez. Want to hear from Janine first and the other?
Oh, sure.
Okay. What was voted on at the January 16th town meeting, it says, Finance Committee members may serve as liaisons to other committees, boards, commissions, and/or ad hoc committees as needed to maintain communication and coordination between those bodies and the Finance Committee. Finance Committee members may serve on appointed committees, commissions, boards, or ad hoc committees with voting rights unless otherwise stipulated in the town bylaws.
So it's all appointed then versus
Yeah,
elected?
it can't be for an elected
So it's still
position.
the same. Okay, I guess, Doreen, that means you can't be on 2. We appreciate your interest. So we're still looking for Finance Committee members. How many, John?
2.
2? Okay.
And there is one person that came in my office today and took out the paperwork to fill out for the application. Haven't gotten it back yet, but then that's due to Cindy Palmer's recruiting. So thank you, Cindy.
So is the Finance Committee able to meet at this point? Because I noticed none of the PCFs or PRFs have been signed by the Finance Committee.
At the last meeting, there was only 2 members.
Okay.
And there is a 3rd member. And the next meeting is the
25th, I believe.
Okay. Any of those PCFs, are we going to have an issue with them by keeping them to the 26th or whatever?
Well, what I did specifically because of the issue right now with only having 3 members on the Finance Committee, so 1 member doesn't show up, I basically took the liberty, because there is nothing in writing that says they have to go in that order. So what I did was I pulled them out, at least so that the Select Board could act on them. They have been basically approved by the PPPB, and have been signed off by the accountant. They still need finance and select board approval, but if the select board approves any of them or all of them tonight, it would still need the finance approval to be the final piece.
And I think technically, Art was out here somewhere, we can just approve them and override the committees. Not that we're gonna do that on a regular basis, but if it's critical, we can vote on it and put it into effect. You know, John, did you see them?
I didn't see them.
Was there anything critical that you'd want to hold them off till? Because it's just pending budget.
It wasn't much.
Yeah. Do you have them tonight then?
Yes.
Oh, they're in here, okay, so when we get
Art,
them.
is it a requirement to have all three boards sign off on them? Okay, there you go.
Yeah, not something we like to do, but if it's critical, it gets somebody working. Okay, so we can look at them later. Okay, back to your report, Ed.
Okay, thank you. First off, I'll let you know that Jennifer Day, the treasurer, is here this evening, and she has provided documents which are required from Unibank for short-term note borrowing for water infrastructure and our new ambulance. These borrowings were approved previously at town meeting, but require the signatures of the select board. This borrowing is for $478,983.50. The note is for 1 year. It is short-term borrowing, and we're doing this because so that if we didn't, DOR could actually, if we didn't short-term borrow until we do the permanent borrowing, DOR could actually penalize us in our free cash calculation. So that's why these are here. The note is for 1 year and has an interest rate of 1.99%. These will eventually be rolled into a permanent borrowing. So Jennifer is here, and she's got the paperwork, and she can answer any questions you may have of her.
Where is paperwork? You have paperwork? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Now, just 1.99%, that's it, right?
For the first year.
Yeah, right. It's a 1 year note. You want to introduce yourself while you're there? Because a lot of people may not know who you are, and how you're on camera, they can see you.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Day, 36 Walcott Road, treasurer collector.
How's the job?
Used to being up here.
That's okay. You'll get used to it.
Yeah, it's going well,
Yeah.
busy, you know, I have some catching up to do definitely, but I think for the most part, all is going pretty good.
Like riding a bicycle, right?
Yeah,
You,
well,
you get used to it after a while.
the days go by quick, you know, never a slow moment, so.
I say one thing we can promise is no slow days.
And if you want, just check those before you,
Yeah, definitely.
because I think one of the markers said town clerk.
Yeah, she has to notarize.
Okay, but I don't think there was on that page, there was a place for select
Oh,
board.
okay.
So, anyway, just make sure we all got it right,
Okay.
like that one.
I think that'd be it.
Yeah.
Hey, Ryan, I got a couple texts saying they can't hear the podium. Is there a way to increase that?
Well, that's an improvement. They don't hear me, but they don't hear the podium.
Ed, are you going to need a copy of this?
Jennifer's
Yes.
going to make copies for, our records. And I would like to thank Jennifer for getting this done before the end of the fiscal year. It was kind of
Are you all set with
dropped on us at the last minute to get the paperwork together, and for Unibank to get the bid out to do this, so we wouldn't be penalized.
So is that rate, is that something you had to go out and really negotiate, or is that a standard rate out there for one term?
So you send out for bids. Oh, the microphone's on now. Now I can hear myself. And they just email the bids back into you. So whichever banks, financial institutions want to bid on it, they email you their bid, and then you go with, the best one. So we received about 5 bids, and that was the lowest. And the others were all like, in the 2s, so, but, yeah.
That's almost as much as you get on your savings account. I mean, you can almost balance it now. I love it when
Yeah.
What?
Good savings account.
We'll talk finances later. Okay. So as soon as we're done, you can have that, and thanks for getting it done.
Oh, no problem.
Ed, do you want to continue on your report?
Sure.
Okay.
Just let you know that the bids are due back to the town for the emergency standby generator for the town hall and the installation tomorrow afternoon at 3:30. And due to what we have found out, that the lead time for this type of generator is 12 to 14 weeks for availability and delivery of these large emergency generators. A letter has been sent to Secretary Bennett's Office of Public Safety and Security, respectfully requesting an extension to our contract for funding for the emergency generator project past the original June 30th deadline. This funding was released late in the fiscal year by the state, and the town did not receive the actual funding until April. So the timeline to actually put a bid together, get it out, get it back, and then finding out that it takes 12 to 14 weeks to actually get the equipment kind of doesn't work with the timeline the state gave us. So we have requested that extension.
Okay. What was the estimate? Was that 60,000? Am I remembering that right?
We received $60,000. My memory is that the town had based that request on receiving some quotes back last year that a couple of them ranged between, I'd say, 50 and 60,000, and then there was one that was up around $90,000. So that's what it was based on.
And which one are we going for?
Well, it's out to bid now, so
Okay.
it'll be the lowest bidder. And we hope they come back under the 60,000. Next up, Vicki Morrow would like permission to carry over 1 week, 4 days, 30 hours of vacation time, which she was not able to use during fiscal year 18 due to the work schedule.
You wanna come up? Now, we only allow this for emergency reasons?
No, because it's in my contract.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay, so what does contract say? Is it allow?
Contract says 1 week, yep.
Okay, so there shouldn't be any issue with it then?
No,
Is that different from the personnel policies of the town?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I had written that into my, my contract that I just negotiated.
Okay. Any questions before we take motions?
So can I just ask what contract you're talking about?
I have a personnel contract. All town
Employment.
accountants have to have a contract for 3 years or 5 years.
There was a contract negotiated
So
with
the
the select
contract
board.
negotiation with the select board.
Okay, and when was that done?
17, because it's through 20, so it's for 3 years. So, yeah, it started July 1st, 2017 through 2020.
Right.
So, yeah,
So that doesn't have to go in front of the PQB either?
The
I'm just
con-
curious, why is that different than other employees in town?
Fire chief's the same way, police chief's the same way.
the state statute allows certain positions to have a 3 to 5 year contract, and you have to have one per state statutes. And so those are the things that you negotiate within your within those contracts, and there's certain things that you can negotiate separate from other personnel in the town, based on those statutes.
For every
Insurances, personnel, so.
And it's, the select board is the ones that, we do that every 3 years with her, let's say.
So you can do different health insurance percentages, vacation, pay, whatever you negotiate with the select board, so.
We need a motion for this, Ed?
Yes, you should.
Okay, so can I hear a motion
I move to approve the carryover 4 days.
Second.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Vicky.
Next, also, my contract calls for my vacation time to be on an annual basis, but is allocated by the fiscal year, although my contract currently mimics a calendar year basis. I have not been able to use any vacation time since I started in January. I would like to carry over whatever vacation time you will allow me to the next fiscal year, as I have been here just under 6 months' time. I would like permission to carry over the prorated vacation time I have earned in the 5+ months I have been here.
Do you have a total on that?
I don't, but if you would like to allow me to carry over the 1 week of 40 hours, I'll end up eating the rest, or take some time next week.
Well, how much, you don't know how much time in general?
It's a little under half a year, so my guess is
About
it's
2
not
weeks?
20 days, or I shouldn't say 20 days. It's not 10 days, it's probably 8 or 9 days.
Okay. Yeah, I personally can't see taking time from him, especially everything we put him through, so, I mean, I'd like to hear a motion that we allow him to carry the balance over.
So move.
Is there a second? Okay. Discussion on that?
I was just wondering about the personnel board, if you have any input into that.
Yeah, this is a contract,
This is a contract situation.
So you have nothing, okay.
yeah,
No jurisdiction.
yeah. Again, I mean, we've worked them around the clock, so I can't see penalizing them for doing what.
Oh, I know, I worked
That's
extremely
not what
hard.
I meant.
Okay, so, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you very much on my behalf and Vicky's behalf. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate the work you put in, for sure.
Thank you. We did get a letter from the Franklin Regional Transit Authority, and I can't remember if we put a term on my appointment or not, that it expires as our representative to the FRTA on 6/30. So to make sure, they're asking for a letter naming our representative for fiscal year 19. If you would like to appoint me again from July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019, I will respond to them that I am the
I will make
representative.
that motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
Should be 2020.
They determined the term, right?
All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So could you write a letter nominating yourself to the FRTA, please?
Well, no, what I'll do is I will write them a letter saying, basically, I am the representative for
kidding.
the next
I
fiscal
was-
year.
Do
Thank
have a
you.
question? Okay, who needs to sign it? Oh, 2 other forms?
No matter how careful we are, we still miss them.
That's why I told her to check it before she leaves. There's just a lot of pages there.
Sorry about that.
Jennifer, while you're here, can I ask you a question? Sure. So I noticed that there were some public notices in the paper regarding the taxes, and was that all pretty well received? Is that a common,
Up here.
is that a common practice? It's obviously a sensitive practice, so I'm just
Yeah.
wondering whether or not it was a successful sort of a thing.
Yeah, so it is coming practice. It has been done in prior years. I don't think there were as many unpaid before. So it looked, it was almost like, half the page, so it was kind of, but it was well received, and I would say out of, all of the accounts advertised in the paper, there's only under a handful that remain unpaid now. So that's good. So everyone, a lot of people have come in and have paid, so, yeah.
Do you think the advertisement let people know, reminded people, or you just think it was more of an embarrassment that they said, I want to get my
I
name?
think, well, maybe a little of both. Some were definitely reminded. I mean, you know, sometimes people are just too in bad situations where they've been ill and it's not something that they've, you know, unfortunately have been able to keep up on, so it's been, yeah, just a little of both, but,
I've seen in other towns where the amount is so small, it's gotta be, they just forgot about that $8 or $10, you know?
yeah, and then, yeah, you know, and it's so small and then to advertise, it's almost like, because it's so, you know, it gets expensive.
Did they
but-
respond?
Yeah, but it was good. I thought it went well.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Right here. Welcome.
Thanks, Jen. And then upcoming, the next Board of Selectmen meeting is Tuesday, July 10th, and then Tuesday, July 24th. August meetings are to be determined, and there is a department's head meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, June 20th at 10 a.m.
And all the select board meetings are at 6 PM, so.
And that's my report.
Does anybody want to look at August now, or you want to wait till later on?
So can I ask you this question? So mostly I think it's a Vicky. So it's 3 weeks to the next select board meeting because of the 4th, right? Is that a problem? In terms of transfers or in terms of anything?
No, because that will be the last transfer that we'll do, because we have to do them by July 15th, so that's why I think I was here a few weeks ago, and we kind of scheduled it on the 10th for that purpose, so it's just getting the finance committee to schedule a meeting or come at the same time or whatever, so there should be minimal at that point, but yeah, so.
Okay.
And
You
the
don't think
last-
that's a problem, Ed?
I don't think it's a problem, no.
Yes, sir.
It actually gives us more time to figure out anything that we may not be aware of that comes in.
Okay, I didn't know if it was going to hold things up of signing things or anything.
Should not.
Okay.
Robert Floyd, 15 East Street. My calendar has our caucus the same evening on the 24th.
Right,
Same room, hour later.
that's right.
Okay.
That's gonna be
All
cool.
right.
Caucus is 7 o'clock?
Yes.
Select board 6? Well, if you want to start July 24th at 5:30 and just make sure we end it by 7? Will that work for people?
Well, you want to end by 6:30 because you need them to set up for the caucus.
True, but, you know, we'll have a little leeway. 5:30 good on the 24th?
Well, could we hold our meeting upstairs just in case we run long and they want to set up?
Whatever people want to do. I know I want to be at the caucus.
Either way, I don't care.
How about 5?
Can they live broadcast or only record from the second floor?
They only record on the second
Yeah.
floor.
How,
Problem?
July 24th is Tuesday, I assume. How about 5 o'clock?
Okay.
Can we just double check with Janine, make sure that's okay?
So what, we have it at 5 o'clock?
No, because I think she's the one that arranges the caucus, and I just want to make sure that gives her enough time.
She
Oh,
needs
I'm
about
not
a
gonna be
half
around
hour
anyway.
to set up.
Okay, I just want to ask her.
No, I totally agree with you, I'm just saying.
So we'll wait. Now, August meetings, you want to look at the calendars?
Yeah, I'm not going to be here that week, so I won't be around.
We haven't determined the weekend.
24th.
Oh, I thought you meant August.
24th of July.
He's gone the month of August, don't bother him.
2 weeks would be the 7th and then the 21st.
Okay.
I'm good for the 7th, but not the 21st.
I'm good for both.
I'm good for both also.
I think I can do both. 7th and 21st then.
That works. Alaska's in between.
What?
So that works, Alaska's in between.
In between. Watch the time change when you get home.
I know.
I actually did first class on the way back just so we could sleep.
Did you check with Janine, or?
Yes, all she needs is about 15 minutes to set up.
Okay, thank you, Ed, for checking.
You're welcome.
So do you want to do 5 or 5:30 then?
I still say 5.
5? Okay, let's leave it at 5. We're going to do 5 o'clock on the 24th, Ed, and for August, we're going to do the 7th and 21st
Okay.
at 6. You all set on your report? You're all set?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, number 7, right of first refusal, 111 Glendale. Okay, now we got one letter here from the Conservation Commission, from Marla Hank as chair, saying the Conservation Commission members voted 5-0 to recommend that the Select Board exercise the town's right of first refusal to purchase the property at 111 Glendale Road. This 85-acre parcel, which is crossed by several intermittent streams, serves as part of an important wildlife corridor. Additionally, the existing hiking trails are in excellent condition. Okay. Thank you, Marla. Okay, so Ed, do you want to talk about a time frame we put together?
Sure. I'm happy to do that. And this is the draft from the information I know, or of what I think I know. June 22nd, the appraisal is due back to the town on the property. I basically penned in the next meeting, July 10th, for potential select board vote to exercise the town's right of first refusal and purchase the property. July 12th, this may be off by a day because someone said it was the 13th today, but one of those 2 days is the grant application deadline, and we're eligible up to $400,000 for that grant, from my understanding. With that timeline, I might suggest a late July, beginning of August, that the town notifies the Waynes of intent to purchase the property, and then July/August, schedule a special town meeting for a vote to fund the acquisition of the Glendale Road property. This could be done through a combination of grant and CPC funding, or if need be, and CPC is willing, all from CPC funding, if we did a borrowing through CPC, which is a possibility. Probably, as I had told you, John, and Rini, probably one of my biggest questions is, if we go forward with this, how best to word those town meeting article questions, and I can work with town council on that. You know, do we need actually 2 questions? One is a fallback if we don't get a grant to totally fund it from CPC. Can we word one in such a way, because we're eligible for $400,000. What if it's 300 or 350? How do you fill a gap? So those are, I think, some of the things that we'll have to work on with town council and figure out if we want to go forward with this, of how we do it and how we do it through one town meeting. It's one special town meeting. My understanding is grant awards are due to be announced in mid-December. And I've got a note here that the town cannot hold the deed or take possession officially of the property before the grants are awarded. And then tentatively, I've got a note that probably the town closes on the property late January to a February timeline.
Okay, so the reason we have this guideline, or this timeline, the Open Space Committee asked Ed to put a timeline together because he was asked to contact the attorney for the seller and the buyer, because we're talking to Mark Walmsley, and you can fill us in if you would, please, Rainey, that the time frame currently we have now with the 120 days and the 90 days, we wouldn't be able to meet it because we can't take title to the land, the deed, before we get notified of the grant. And with the time frame of that 120 and 90 days, we would have to do that within that time frame. So we'd have the deed in hand before we knew if we got the grant, and the grant won't allow us to do that. So we asked Ed to go back to the attorney for the buyer and the seller, which is the same attorney, to find out if they were willing to either extend the contract, and that would have to be the seller and the current buyer agreeing to that along with the town, or if they would agree to maybe cancel the agreement entirely and just have a new purchase and sale with us. So tell me if I'm wrong on this, Ed, but they came back with us and said, we'd like to see a time frame on how you propose to do this. And we asked Ed to put it together. Is that pretty much?
Yes, yeah, they asked us to put together a time frame in what we saw as our next steps, so that they could the attorney could show it to their clients.
So if we agree to this, and we're going to present that to the attorney for the buyers and the sellers. And hopefully, they'll respond in a positive. Rini, is there something you want to add to that?
No, I think that covers it.
Okay, so we're going to forward this to clean it up a little.
I will
and
put it in a letter format and,
Right.
yes,
Right.
send it along to the attorney.
Appreciate you getting that out, Ed.
You're welcome.
Select Board assignments and liaison roles, number 8.
And for some reason, and I can't remember exactly, I thought there was something hanging from the last meeting on some of the liaison roles, and I could be wrong, so.
Yeah, Cindy Palmer was one of the ones that was hanging, waiting for the planning board to vote a member.
Oh,
And I
that's-
believe Cindy was voted at the last planning board meeting as representative for the planning board. So we should have probably acted at least on that. Right?
Are you referring to Cindy
Op-
being
op- Open
part of
Space
the Open
Committee.
Space Review Committee?
I'm talking about open space, is that what we're talking about, or am I wrong?
No, we were on the 8 Select Board.
Oh,
Liaisons,
sorry
yeah.
about that. Oh, well.
I was waiting for the open
Yeah, I was ahead of my time.
Is that listing in our packet, Ed?
No, it is not.
Okay.
But actually, it's probably in the minutes from,
Yeah, it is, I read
Okay.
that.
yes.
Okay,
It's what, 26?
okay, I'm not finding it, so. But
I'm not sure what we're talking about.
we're talking about
43, page 43.
Item 43.
number
yeah.
8, Select Board
The June
assignments and
5th
liaison
minutes.
roles.
Okay.
Page 43?
Yeah, on the second page.
Is it,
Are you talking about, are you referring to the minutes?
Yes,
Yes.
the minutes.
or
Okay,
is
I
it?
have some questions about the minutes, but I don't have any questions about the liaison roles.
Thought we were trying to get Charlie's approval for assignments on that.
I
No,
wasn't
we
here.
just
I
assigned
have
him,
no
we weren't
idea.
looking for his approval.
Okay, so no questions on the assignments? Everybody feels comfortable? While you were gone, we assigned you back to the PQB as well as a couple that you requested to be on.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we added Board of Health.
You
Yeah.
added the Board of Health?
Yeah, because you had been temporarily on that and you were still trying to get some emergency management information.
I still am.
That's what I
Yeah.
thought.
Still trying.
That's what I thought.
Okay. Number 9, shared conservation agent agreement with the city of Easthampton.
And you'll have a letter in your packet from the city of Easthampton, still trying to resolve the termination of the agreement between Easthampton and Southampton for a shared conservation agent. And what they have offered is 5 hours of additional service for debriefing from the conservation agent to the Conservation Commission, to be used before July 1st, and I don't know if the Conservation Commission talked about that last evening or have any thoughts on that.
Yes, we did. I was elected.
Okay, I'm sorry, Marla, can you come up to the podium?
Marla Hank, Gilbert Road, Conservation Commission. It was brought up at the meeting last night, and we said we would make use of the time. It will be a little challenging because not only do I not like to be on television and on the internet, I also do not like to go on airplanes. And since the conservation agent is on vacation in Oregon this week, it makes it a little more challenging to get in touch with her. But I will try to get the 5 hours in next week, which is the last possible minute before the end of the month.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I mean, I know we're still in disagreement, but we're getting towards the end of the month, and I don't know that there's much else we can do at this point. Any
I don't
thoughts?
know either, so my suggestion maybe to take them up on their offer and for the 5 hours of debriefing and
Close the door.
I can close the door on
Yeah.
the agreement.
I totally agree with that. I think that we should. I totally disagree with the way they interpreted the contract. We had a grant where we shared the position, 10 hours a week, and 20 for them. And we went as far as we could with the override and everything else. We were not even giving raises to existing employees, never mind trying to find a way to transition this position from a grant to a permanent position. And so we did not choose to do that. And so they basically took away their 10 hours before the end of the fiscal year. My understanding is that neither the mayor nor the planner was involved in writing up the contract, and the contract was written in such a way that we were, keeping this position till the end of the fiscal year. That's not the way they interpreted it. I told them that I disagreed with that. So I think it's a learning experience, if nothing else, and I think we should get the 5 hours.
Just
Francine, do
a
you
note,
have something?
that's a previous
Yeah,
meeting.
I mean, they withheld services for the last several months based on the existing contract because we weren't continuing after July 1st.
So they took the
I
time
would really
before
like to
July
try
1st.
to recover that other time, and what I'm hearing, I guess, is you don't believe that that's possible, but yes,
Yeah.
we need to look at the contracts more carefully in the future so that we're not, we just
Well,
lost
our
time.
I believe the contract, and correct me if I'm wrong, Marla, that this contract was written up in such a way that there was the possibility that would not be able to be funded after the first year. And unfortunately, the mayor is a new mayor, and the planner is a new planner, and they interpreted it differently. The mayor is an attorney, and that's the way it is. I'm not sure it's worth ruining a relationship with a neighbor. I think we should write a letter back saying we'll be happy to take the 5 hours, and we still think that, it was to the end of the fiscal year, and let's call it a day.
Yeah, by spending money on legal,
Yeah.
it's going to cost us money, but it's also going to sour a relationship over a small matter. I agree with Irene. I think the contract was pretty clear.
Yeah.
So I guess we're going to go, can I have a motion that we accept the 5 hours and move on from there?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, new business, Virginia Ahart on behalf of CPC to address Select Board concerning Old Town Hall / Police Station. Welcome, Virginia.
Okay. Virginia Ahart, 27 Fulmer Road, Chair of the Community Preservation Committee. At our last meeting, we had a discussion of the fact that a grant had been given basically to the Select Board to do a study of the Old Town Hall. At that time, we were thinking it might be usable as a police station or something like that. But we, in talking at our meeting, realized that there is a more urgent need there at the town hall. And we looked at the way the article was written and determined that it probably could be used for an evaluation of what needs to happen now, soon, before we don't need to worry about what's going on inside of it. It'll be a heap of bricks in the parking lot. In view of that, and knowing that the Select Board is so very, very busy, it ends up that Bob Kozub and I said that I would come to you and ask if we could do the search for a person to do that evaluation. That's a little moving away from what I have ever done. I've been very careful not to try to be involved in any of these projects. And once or twice I've had to be. And I think this is one that I'm willing to lend some time to, along with Bob, who really never wanted to get involved with the Old Town Hall, although he thinks it's a beautiful building and work should be done there. So with the permission of the Select Board, may we go ahead and look into finding someone to evaluate the immediate needs to shore up that building. The money is there, but it was for you to use for another study. And this is a study. So that is basically,
Do we need to modify the article of town meeting?
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
well, we discussed that for a while, and some people didn't think we needed to. Because it just says a feasibility study.
But I think at the last CPC, when I was there, we also talked about doing some repairs as part of that.
If there is money enough left over after the evaluation, yes, there might actually be some to start repairing.
But that falls under construction laws and all that, so we'd have to come back and talk about that.
Yeah, well
You
then,
just want an okay to use up to that, was it $30,000?
well, that's all we can use.
Right.
That's all community preservation had given
Right.
for it. And I think Bob was willing to contact the person who did the evaluation of the firehouse.
Do you mind if I step in as liaison to the select board to link up with them on this?
I personally don't have an issue.
What liaison to the select board?
To work with them.
Okay, I'm the liaison to the Community
okay.
Preservation Committee.
I understand that, but this is a specialized project.
So you want to be an additional resource for this particular project?
Only because I've been working, putting this all together for the last several years. So, but if not, if you'd much rather I didn't, then that's fine.
Can we back up a minute, because the warrant that was passed when?
It was at the special January.
January.
And it was authorized for how much money to do what?
30,000 to do a feasibility study.
Okay, was it to determine use of the building or anything?
That I don't think was specified. That's why, I
That's
mean,
what-
I think that was kind of the intent when we did it. But I don't think it was,
Can we look at it and just read it? I just feel like if the voters of this town voted with the intention of something happening, I just want to make sure that it's within I know what you want to do, and I support that, which is basically not make the building fall apart. The front steps aren't being used, it's not safe. I mean, we need to do that. But I just don't want to go under false pretenses if something was voted a certain way.
if that was well, that was my original intent, would be to take it back to the special, rescind that one and get a new one. But several people on the committee seem to feel that the way it was written, it doesn't specify what it's for.
Is there a way to get rid of get a hold of a copy, Ed?
I have it right here.
Do you? Okay. So why don't you read it out to us?
It says Article 29, transfer CPC funds for a study of the old town hall, page 17. It says, to see if the town will vote to transfer up to $10,000 from community preservation to that's the town, never mind, that's the door.
No, yeah, this is 30.
Did you say it was 30?
30,000.
Yeah, it was $30,000.
Okay, yep, to see if the town will vote to transfer $30,000 to the select board to prepare a feasibility study for a preliminary design for the restoration of the old town hall, said sum to be taken from community preservation surcharges undesignated, or take any other action relative to. This article will fund a feasibility study for the restoration of the police department old town hall. The building was constructed in 1902 and is the second oldest town building. Whether it remains as the police headquarters or is utilized for some other purpose, the building is highly inefficient and in poor condition. It is one of the town's most historic buildings. Sounds pretty general.
Yeah, I thought that was it
Yeah.
falls within the scope of that.
Yeah, or any other actions.
Yeah, so that, anyway, we would like to have you affirm that you don't mind giving up the job of doing this study.
Sorry, here, that's what it says.
So
Yeah.
are you going to get 3 quotes or from people that are interested in doing it first, so we'll have an idea? Is that your plan?
Bob is looking into having this man who is a historical consultant kind of thing, who did the study for the Historical Commission on the part of the fire station that's the old school. He was going to start with him, and he feels that his cost was not so big that we would have to go out and get all kinds of bids.
Under 30B, for a contract like this, do they need to
Yeah.
get 3 quotes, or?
3 quotes, depends, are we thinking architect, engineer? Engineering has a little more flexibility to it. Personally or professionally, I think that building needs, whether you call it an envelope study or an envelope evaluation, roof, windows, mortar, brick, because of the fact that, right now I think it's more important to shore up the outside of that building to protect the inside.
Okay, yes.
Scope of work needs to be developed, and the
Oh, that's
scope
what
of
I'm-
work, this business of just having somebody that we know doesn't work in this case, in my mind.
Well, again, if we can get somebody that helps us develop the scope of work, and we pay that person for that, because I don't think, none of us have that kind of experience. I mean, I've got a lot of construction background, but nothing that would help with that.
Point taken, but
I'll be willing to see if I can resurrect an old RFQ or
Okay.
whatever from
To do it
a
quickly.
similar but bigger project.
And work with Virginia and her?
Sure.
Okay, yeah. That sound what you're looking for?
Yeah,
So I'll make a motion that the Historical Commission and the Community Preservation Commission work with Ed Gibson and try to get quotes for a feasibility study. Does that cover it?
Yeah, up to the $30,000.
Up to the $30,000, which has been approved by the town.
Is there a
they're not authorized to expend the money, they're
No,
just getting
no.
quotes. That comes
Getting
back to
quotes.
us.
we're not,
Right.
we're just helping get it started.
Yeah, but they're gonna know when you talk to them that the amount we have to spend at a maximum, so they can develop their proposal based on that.
No,
Is there a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
and I hope none of you are brokenhearted that you're not going to have to do it.
We appreciate you stepping forward.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks, Virginia.
Okay, next on here is Glendale Road Improvement Easements. Select Board to vote to take the easements. Item number 11 in your packet.
Yes, you have, and I have the originals to be signed, but you've got the order of taking in your
And,
packet.
We have,
Actually, if you go to the left side, in your folders, you'll have an amended order of taking. You'll also have a motion to do the taking.
Yeah.
This was actually voted at town meeting last year. The right-of-way plans have been done. The appraisals have been done on the permanent and the temporary easements, and that has been sent out to the property owners. So this is the last piece of the formal easement process where the Board of Selectmen will basically vote to the order of taking and the damages for that order of taking.
I don't know if it's in here, Ed, but what's the total, as you say, damages?
And it may not be in here. My memory is it's $9,600 and some change.
Yeah, it's not much.
This is all coming from the grant money, correct?
Actually, this would be from Chapter 90.
Chapter 90, okay. So none of it out of our budget directly?
No,
Correct.
Okay.
we had allocated over $100,000 to work on this, so we're
Right.
fine.
And is this motion that you sent to us, is this the language that is requested?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like me to read it, or should we just?
If you want to make the motion, you could read it.
Okay, I'll move that the Select Board vote execute an order of taking for the Glendale Road reconstruction project to compensate the property owners in accordance with the damage awards set forth at Exhibit B to the order of taking, which is not to be recorded with the Registry of Deeds, and authorize town council to record the order of taking and related documents with the Hampshire Registry of Deeds.
Do we have a second? Okay. Discussion? Charlie got the second.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Any
Stay over here.
discussion on this? I just want to make sure Kathy has it, that's all.
No, just a little interesting note. How much did it cost for the appraisals?
Again, don't quote me, but in my memory is it was somewhere around 18,000 and some change.
Yeah, 18,000 to do the appraisal to take and purchase $9,000 worth of easements.
And yes, and, yes,
Yeah,
and,
there were some.
Yeah.
and that would have been higher if Randall hadn't done such a good job of beating the bushes and getting donations for it, so. And of course, he also did a good job getting that before we had to go to appraisals, or the appraisal figure might have been higher also.
So now that this is the final stage, is there hope that this will start sooner rather than later?
Fall is
Fall?
our hope, yes.
What's interesting, if you remember our safe routes to school, the sidewalks and all that, that was linked in with the grant in Hadley on Route 9 to put the sidewalks in there. They're just digging up the sidewalks now, and ours are in and being used, so ours went relatively quickly. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
There's 2 copies, each of you needs to sign it, please.
Okay. So next is fiscal 18 budget to expenditures update. That's item 12B in your box. Vicki, do you want to come up and address that? Now, this is through June 14th, so basically 11 and a half months, so the percent of expenditure should be pretty much at, what, 95, 98% or so on the right?
Most of them, but you're obviously going to get those anomalies where you pay for service agreements at the beginning of the fiscal year, maintenance contracts you pay at the beginning of the fiscal year, those types of things. I don't know if you have any questions, if you've looked at this or not. I guess one concern that I have would be, I don't know if we will have enough money to cover the snow and ice deficit for this fiscal year. That is about $82,000.
That's the winter roads?
Yes. Which is a legal deficit because we did declare that. What happens is you either need to cover that deficit at a special town meeting from free cash or stabilization, or it goes on your tax recap for the next fiscal year, which would mean if you put it on the tax recap and we are at our budgeted level for new growth, we would have to go to town meeting to decrease our budget.
So cut from other departments?
Yes.
Okay.
So it was.
In order for it to balance.
When we do a recap, I'm looking at this, a lot of them are way under where they should be. Do you have a sense that when we reconcile the over and unders, we're gonna have enough money left over?
I don't think we're gonna have enough to cover it.
Okay. We won't know till July 10th meeting? Is that?
Hopefully, we will have everything by then.
About how far off, roughly?
I guess it all depends on what people, if they're gonna spend what's in their expenses, they're allowed to do that. You know, most people are at their level of spending, or, you know, there's no big pockets of money that can cover that. Because I think Ed mentioned this last time I was not here, we had, which is in the transfers, you know, our insurance is off $34,000, which can be covered from other pockets of money. You know, we didn't spend as much money in school vocational, but we have to give that back to Norris because we need to meet net school spending. You know, those types of things. And there's still accounts in here that we don't have the bills for, like for instance, legal. But I can't really gauge on what we might need for legal, where I can gauge what we might need for which is in the transfers, for electricity and gas for this building. You know, because you can take an average of the last 10 months and project out for 2 months that you might need. But legal, we might need $5,000 more. We're gonna need $4,000 more for electricity for this building. So those are types of things that I need to take away from other places, and there's not any place where there is tens of, 20s of thousands of dollars that's unspent.
Vicki, I thought we were getting $100,000 back from transportation at Norris.
What?
At the last budget meeting that I went before I was no longer the liaison, the line item for transportation at Norris was up by about over $100,000.
Some of that, $17,000, is not 100, but
Right.
$17,000 has to go to Smith Vocational Transportation because of the van pool for the one child that we had to contract out, which is $95 a day for 180 days, which we did not budget for.
But it was a lot of money.
It says here, local school transportation, it's under by about 80,000.
Under?
Under, yeah, it's at 67%, which is about 80,000 under.
But you still have 2 months left to pay, which is $19,000 a month, almost 20 grand a month.
This goes through June 15th or so,
But if I don't get those bills from the school to pay them, then they're not in this number.
so they're not accrued here, it's a cash basis.
Correct, until the end of the year, then I will accrue them all at the end of the year, but right now I'm not accruing anything because I have to pay actual bills.
What happens with the interest on some of the accounts that we have? Operational stabilization?
That stays with those accounts.
They stay with those
Any money that we get interest-wise will revert back to the general fund unless there's a specific statute by state law to stay with those funds. CPC stays with those funds, stabilization stays with those funds. Any monies we get from trust funds, those stay with those funds, those don't come back to the general fund, so.
Well, given the fact that it was a terrible winter, I certainly wouldn't favor having it go into deficit spending and have it negatively affect us in the next year.
It's
So-
going into deficit spending regardless, it's just how we pay it
Right.
back, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm not sure I want it to
Yeah.
affect
Yeah.
the following year.
Now, a question for you, Vicki. Did you have your hand up, Francine?
Yeah, I was just thinking, I mean, you said you don't know if people are gonna spend down or not. Is there something, some direction that could be given or some questions posed to the department heads about savings and in order to avoid the situation? You know, I know it's already, if it isn't earmarked and it's not committed, is there any way of realizing any savings?
I guess part of it is there's not a whole lot of money that people haven't already spent, because they don't get a whole lot of money to begin with.
Well, that I get, but
Yeah.
I'm looking at the revenue and what's, you know, what the grand total of outstanding is.
Right now, there's two lines under revenue.
Right.
8% and deficit of 18,000, another one was 64,000. So I'm looking at page 1, 12A, item 12A. It says supplemental taxes fiscal year 17, only received 8%, deficit of 18,000. Further down, deficit of 64,000, payment in lieu of taxes. Were we expecting to get that revenue? Because that's about 80-something thousand dollars.
Yes,
We are?
yes.
Okay.
The supplemental tax bills just went out.
Okay.
So hopefully those will be collected by the end of the years. The payment in lieu of taxes, we just got payment from Holyoke Gas and Electric. But these revenues are only through part of April.
Oh,
It's not through the revenue doesn't go through 6/14.
yeah, I was gonna say, this is.
It's only
great.
partway through April, so the May bills aren't even in here yet.
Okay, well, that was just very
Yeah.
That
low
answers that
percentage
question.
in, so I just wanted to make sure. The same for tax exemptions, it's $27,000 that still haven't been collected.
Tax exemptions,
Okay.
oh. Yeah, that comes from the state. We submit a report to the state and they will send that to us. And if they've already sent it, Jen's, like I said, Jen's brand new. She's trying to figure out how to do it while she's doing it, you know, trying to learn it as she's going along. But you're always going to have receivables. These revenues are never going to be equal to what you budgeted. You're always going to have a couple $100,000 in receivables from year to year. And that's always a given, so.
Were you gonna ask another question?
No.
Okay. Question on the fire, and we've got, for instance, fire department wages in the hole by roughly 95,000. But on the EMT standby and EMT wages, we're under budget by roughly 170,000. So that would give you roughly $80,000 under budget if you add them together. Is that a reasonable assumption that most of that will still be there in the next couple of weeks? 'Cause that would take care of the issue with the winter roads for sure.
Some of that, the chief was transferring because he needs some equipment for his fire department.
Are you transferring from wages to equipment?
Well, transferring from, well, the wages is gonna cover wages, and then, you know, the EMT wages is gonna cover the fire, which you still have 3 weeks left that you have
Yeah.
to pay people. And then the EMT standby, he was gonna take it and split it amongst, he has another $3,000 or $4,000 bill for fire truck maintenance that he had to repair the fire truck.
Can we take it from wages to, for equipment like that?
Yeah, at the end of the year, you can do that.
But it's
As
gotta
a
be approved.
transfer,
It's
right?
gotta be approved.
A transfer, yes, it has to be approved.
Yeah, I mean, we've gotta be careful on that going,
Made him aware of that tonight, called me up, and I explained to him that we have to wait till finance committee comes back to the select board before we can move any of that money.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, none of it can be moved until everyone approves it, so.
That doesn't mean we're moving that money.
I was gonna say, we shouldn't use it, the wages, as planning for equipment and all that stuff, you know? So hopefully we can have some money there. And the police incentives got an extra 22,000, but I'm assuming the second payment hasn't been.
Yeah, he just calculated that payment, and some of that actually he was gonna transfer to his building expenses, because he's gotta fix the, air conditioner compressor that got busted up in this winter time.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. If we're gonna transfer from police, and this is something going forward in 19, I guess we've gotta watch. We've got $22,000 in police education incentive, I'll use that example. And then there's enough money to transfer to maintenance or something else.
It's like $1,700.
Okay, but I mean, we've gotta look at these balances going forward. We wanna fund them at the level we need to fund them, but not in excess, and that just doesn't go for police, goes for everybody. I think that's gonna be the challenge this coming year.
Well, with the police incentive, you base it on, it's a percentage of their base pay.
Yeah.
And so you try to guess as much as you can with steps and, you know, some of them get EMT 5%, and a 2% increase, and so you try to calculate as close as you possibly can.
Right, but if this, again, I'm using one example.
Yeah.
This is, gets, if you will, estimated at 42,000, and we got a balance of 22, so that guess was off by 50%. So I think that's what we need to hone going forward.
No, but he hasn't paid the second half of that yet.
Well, that was my initial
Yeah,
question.
yeah, he didn't pay the second half of that yet. So there's like $1,700 that's gonna be
Okay,
potentially left in
Take
there.
into play the fact that we're gonna be renegotiating contracts with the police department.
yeah, but again, going forward, as we talked about in fiscal 19, we have to be real vigilant in any balance, 1,000, 2,000 here or there in every department.
Yeah.
People can't hear me? Oh.
Barely.
Gotta-
I also think that, you know, we brought this up before. If you have a budget in a department, this line is up 224%. And nobody seems to worry because we'll just take it from the EMT, this and that, and we can just move things around. I think if you're trying to budget, you try to estimate, and I've been involved in budgets that have crazy nurses' schedules too. So it's not like it's the fire department and there's no control over it because, you know, you got on-call people and you have this, that, and everything else. You still have to come up with a budget where you can estimate the amount of staff you're gonna need for a 24/7 job. And to just be able to have like, you know, we can just move, you know, from equipment to wages and wages back, and I just don't think that's the way
We should manage.
optimally do it.
Yeah, I agree. The one caveat, if you will, on fire department wages and EMT standby and wages, we tried to budget that, you know, going forward in, you know, what we think it's gonna be, we being the chief, but he doesn't know how many calls are going out for fire versus ambulance, so those three kind of blend together over the year. Because if you got all fire calls, it's all gonna hit the fire. If you got all the EMT, it's all gonna hit the EMT line, depending on who goes out, so.
It just doesn't seem like it should be that way.
But I agree with the equipment and all that, that's just not, we'll have to all stay on top of that. So is there any other questions on either the expense or the revenue side?
But, so this is the other caveat. Do you decide you don't pay attention to your snow and ice budget and you overspend it on whatever because you can, because you legally can? You know what I mean? Like, maybe you watch that a little more closely too. I mean, you gotta watch it all.
Yeah, that's definitely a conversation we have with Randall on that.
You know, I'm not saying that it was nilly-willy, but I'm just saying, like, you know, you kind of have to keep track of all of that way.
I think everybody can agree it was a pretty extreme winter, so I don't know what the pattern is before this past winter. I agree with you, though. I think all department heads have to be, you know, tightly on top of it. You know, we had an override pass, not everybody was crazy about it, and we have to just have a plan going forward. Ed, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to make one little comment and stick up for a little bit for some of the department heads as you talk about, okay, well, we shouldn't be transferring wages to, yeah. But
equipment, yeah.
let's talk a little bit now for going forward in truth in budgeting. Is the fact that there was $0 in the original budget for either fire truck maintenance or ambulance maintenance really realistic? So,
That's why I think this coming year is a realistic budget. I'm going backwards, yeah, you're right, there's a lot of reasons, but going forward, starting July 1, I think we all agreed when we did this process, we're really gonna have to change the way we review these and have Vicky here on a regular basis and the department heads here on a regular basis and keep track. We didn't do that without the town administrator because there was nobody really to work with them, so I think this is ongoing versus we catch it when we can, like last year.
Vicki, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it 3 years ago that we finally started budgeting the highway department for the entire year?
Yes.
Prior to that, we used to scramble around trying to make that balance at the end of the year. So
Yes, part of it was, yeah, we gave them, about 3 years ago, we gave them 52 weeks. And we gave them all the mowing. We took the mowing from everybody. We gave them 52 weeks. There's no overtime, but it's the total 52 weeks.
So if you look at this, John, just from a scope of where we're going versus where we've been, it's like Ed bringing back the fire department had no budget for equipment maintenance.
Which we don't for 19 either, by the way.
You know, these are things that are moving forward, but because it's a political machine, it doesn't move fast.
Well, I know, but we promised everybody out there that this year, you know, we're putting the line in the sand, and I think we need to start July 1, and all the department heads have to be on board, because we're working with them, we're not working against them.
I believe that they're all on board. I believe that the issue is fine tuning all this stuff so that it reflects the reality.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Well, and, I mean, I've done a lot of budgeting in my career too, and it's, part of it is a guesstimate. Like, you can only anticipate what you potentially might have. You know, my budget's easy. I got my salary, my assistants, the audit, and I got $865. And I gotta go to class, which takes up half of it. Do I buy new pencils or do I steal them from my kid's pencil box? You know what I mean? Which is what I usually do, so.
We're the reason.
So, but I'm just saying, like, so mine is pretty easy. I can budget, I know I have $865, I can do bang, bing, bang, boom. But other people, the bigger departments, you know, like Mike, he budgeted pretty good on his police department expenses. He didn't anticipate that condenser to get broken. Now he's got to fix it.
Oh.
So he's waiting to find out what he might or might not need in terms of, like, for instance, gasoline. We budgeted, gasoline has gone up almost a whole $1 or 85 cents or whatever. That wasn't in the budget last year. So they try to do as best they can in terms of what they anticipate could potentially come up, so.
I agree 100%, it's just that we're not gonna have any money to balance these ups and downs. They're gonna have to look at their budget. I know, when I look at my budget, I have X amount of dollars, and if I don't make it on this line, I have to draw from somebody else, because I can't go back and say I want more money because this went up or down. You gotta manage it, and I think they all do a great job. It's just, you know, just a different year and how we're gonna have to do it and all work together.
I mean, you know, there's probably some money here, like the assessors have some money left because, you know, Mike is no longer with us, so there's probably, you know, $15,000 or $16,000, $17,000, $18,000, you know, $17,000 that we could potentially cover that 82, you know, I mean, it all depends on, I guess I'd have to look at my transfers to see what I anticipated, so, but anyways.
Can I ask you one more question?
Yeah.
There was a line item that had to do with the Norris School roof interest. Wasn't that is that the last payment, or is that done? That's under debt service.
Yeah, we paid that off last year,
year.
this past year.
Okay.
So that was the anticipated interest, but because we paid it off, it was probably a little bit less. That's
Okay.
what we thought it was, yeah.
Okay, but that's over after
That's
this.
done.
That's
Yeah.
gone.
We're done. It's gone.
Yeah.
And the Halloween storm, we paid,
Or Halloween storm.
and, yeah, all those debts are retired, so.
So any more questions on the fiscal year 18 budget to date?
No, I just want to say thank you, Ed, for kind of sticking up for your department heads. I think that they do a good job, and I think hasn't been an easy year without giving raises. We decided not to have liaisons to departments from the select board, so that people will go to Ed. So I would encourage people to defer to Ed in their communication with department heads.
I would think just the regular meetings you're having with department heads really helps them negotiate through the process too.
And I'd just like to add, just having Vicki come and explaining, the variables and the variations in the budget. I mean, I look at this revenue report and it says June 14th. It doesn't say April to me. Those are
Yeah.
important factors when you're trying to figure out where the money's coming from and where it's going to go. So,
Yeah.
more information from you is very useful.
And we're going to have Vicki back on a regular basis?
Yes, I'd like to. I don't know
But
if
you have
you'd
to have
like to, but I
questions.
would like to.
If you get these, you should have some questions, right, if you're looking at them?
Okay, I guess you're not going anywhere fast, right?
No,
'Cause
I'm not.
fiscal year 2018 departmental transfers.
Alright. So, I tried to do as much in this one as anticipation of what could potentially come up, talking to different department heads and whatnot, and what I saw of bills that were anticipated or things that we needed to transfer based on requirements, like for instance, net school spending type of issues. That's why this is fairly long, so that I wouldn't have too much. The last one that we potentially have will just be cleanup items, with any payroll or with any, kind of unexpected expenses or expenses people were holding off on purchasing because they weren't sure, like for instance, the police or the fire or highway, what kind of gas they're gonna need, that type of stuff. So the first one on here is health agent salary. They're transferring money from their Sharps program and the Board of Health expenses in order to cover those last few weeks. It's very busy for and for Nicole to do all the Title V inspections, and that's gonna cover a good portion of her money for those next few weeks. Council on Aging wages. They're gonna need approximately $500 to cover their wages through the end of the next 3 weeks, which are gonna come from their expenses, so it's within that same group of items. These next two are just,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
You're taking from the accounts, the source of funds, obviously. Have these people been involved with this? I mean, for Council of Aging, Rini, you're on the, okay, so
Yes.
you're all okay with that? Okay.
Yep.
Great, thanks.
Pequot Pond Sewer and Halloween Storm is just, the interest rates were a little bit higher when we paid off the Halloween Storm, and Pequot Pond Sewer, we pay an extra fee to State Street Bank for the filing. That's a small amount of money we're gonna cover from the Norris School roof that we had left over. Gas and electric, I anticipate on the average of what we've paid, about $1,600 for gas per month. We have 2 months left to pay, and our gas bills are like $160 for the next 2 months, which is relatively small. We anticipate $3,500. We're still waiting for those net metering credits, so hopefully next year, when we get those net metering credits, we won't have as large electric bills. Those are gonna come from town hall custodial wages and admin assistant wages, because those positions aren't gonna be filled by the end of the fiscal year. And there is some money left in that town admin salary line item, due to the fact that we didn't hire Ed until January, even though we had budgeted the 80 grand for the whole year. General highway expenses, Randall had a bill for $4,208 that needed to be put in for repair of the stop signs, the flashing stop signs, and the electronic sign for the school. He, repaired all those, and this is that, he's gonna take it from his wages, which he has enough money to cover the last 3 weeks from those wages. Vocational transportation, we're gonna be short about $17,100, because we didn't budget for that third student to get transported to Westfield Voc, and that was $95 a day for 180 days. So that's gonna come from the local school transportation. I don't know if you remember, Margaret Larson was here, and Kristen Smitty from the principal from Hampshire Regional, they came up with a plan where we're gonna actually, I'm trying to remember what the plan was. There was a specific bus they were gonna use around, use our own vehicle, hire someone. It was gonna save us a little bit of money.
Right,
So, we won't have to run into this issue next year. Photocopier lease, those are for the last 2 months for the photocopier in the workroom. It's $251.90 per month for the lease, and then we have to pay for whatever copies are over and above. I think it's 3,000 copies a month, which is gonna come from our webpage maintenance line item. Town hall building expenses, $623.02 is for some bills that we are gonna pay B&G Mechanical for the never-ending saga in our HVAC system.
Well, don't forget, part of that's for plumbing work, too.
Oh, the
so,
plumbing, yes,
yeah.
part of that's plumbing, yep. And so that, again, is gonna come from the little bits of money that's left from that town admin salary due to budgeting for the whole 80, but we didn't hire Ed until January, and we are only paying Bob a specific amount for those specific months. Town maps, last year, the budget was cut for town maps from the assessors because they hadn't spent it yet, which they don't usually spend it till the end of the fiscal year. So now they're short this year for all the town maps, the GIS maps that they need. So they are requesting $1,500 to be able to do all those maps for the end of the fiscal year. But that is gonna come from their assessor admin assistant line item, which is, there's only one person working in that office, and Martha has transferred over to the principal assessor. There's money in that admin assistant line item to cover that. Elementary education, that balance, the $26,847.74 is the balance of what we didn't spend for vocational education. And as I previously stated, we need to keep that within that same group so we meet net school spending. So that will go to the Norris School to be able to spend. Group health insurance is approximately $36,033.50, which is half of 1 month of health insurance that we pay for non-retirees, for regular employees. It's about $77,000 a month we pay for health insurance. Part of that is the enrollment period. Part of that increase in the enrollment period came after we had done the budget. People had switched plans between HMO and PPOs. When the budget's done, you can only anticipate who might come on board, who might take the insurance. You don't know, the previous treasurer budgeted 2 or 3 people that might take the insurance, but if you get 5, you're kind of stuck. 10,000 of that is going to come from group health retirees. There's about $13,000 that we budgeted a little bit more for group health retirees for this fiscal year. Our unemployment, I'm going to take $5,000 from unemployment. Currently, we have, I think we budget $10,000 and we've spent like $700. I got another bill for $1,000. And then we'll get another bill for about 1,000, so that should pretty much wipe out unemployment. And then the local school transportation, which does not fit into the net school spending category, I took $21,000 of that to pay for the group health insurance.
So I guess Rainey, it kind of
Yeah, there
answers
goes
your
the
question.
$38,000 of
Yep.
local school transportation.
Yep,
Exactly.
yep. Independent audit, $4,000. Every 3 years, we have to have an audit done for the school department by our auditors, and that came up this year. And that is gonna come from school choice tuition, which falls into the net school spending piece, but taking the $4,000 away is not gonna bring us under that limit. And that school choice tuition comes on our cherry sheet, and they give us an assessment and say, here, we're gonna assess you, you're gonna pay 70 grand. Well, it doesn't always necessarily come out to be that 70 grand. So some of that is gonna go towards the audit because it's school-related. Ambulance billing, the last bill that the fire chief just got for the month of May was $700 and some odd dollars, so we're anticipating we're gonna need another couple $100 for the end of the year, and basically they bill us for the calls they get. So as much as we think, oh wow, we have to pay this, these are more calls that we're getting, which is more insurance that we're getting for using the ambulance. The company bills us by calls that we have. And we've never really gone over the $7,000 that we've put in our budget recently, so it's a good thing and a bad thing because you don't want those calls, but if we're getting those calls and paying for them, then we're actually gonna be getting that revenue from those particular calls. And that is gonna come from the EMT license and certification. You know, the fire chief doesn't necessarily know when he brings people on board, when they're, you know, what type of certifications, when they're gonna be renewed, when they're not gonna be renewed, how much they're gonna cost. So there's a little bit of money left in there from this fiscal year to cover that ambulance billing. Police building expenses. So as I explained earlier, $1,711.86 will come out of the police education incentive, which the police chief will need to fix that condenser, which is probably almost $4,000. So he's hoping that he can just get a little bit transferred and use the rest from what he has in his building expenses currently. Treasure collector expenses, $500. There is only $1,600 left in there. Partly, we have to pay a $2,000 continuing disclosure every May to our Unibank Financial Services. So this will make up the difference between what's in there and what we need to pay that financial disclosure. Now, we had to pay for 2 new people to get bonded, which we didn't anticipate. You know, and also we pay Art Jones for the mailings for the motor vehicle, you know, billings and all that. So sometimes that's a little bit higher than anticipated because you have more vehicles that.
It's on the collection side.
Yeah, I mean, but we pay for it for him, but then we get to collect that money later. So it's.
But it's not for the regular excise, it's just the ones in
No,
collection?
it is some of the regular excise. Yeah, he folds them all up and everything. He pays for the envelopes and all that kind of stuff. We just kind of mail them out, but he does the demands and all that also. And that's fluctuating, you know, depending on how many bills people, how much people have for new cars and all that. Then the next section is for fire department. So I think the fire chief tries to do his best in anticipating, like John said, what are fire calls, what are ambulance calls, how much, you know, what shifts he's gonna need, what shifts he's not gonna need, who's gonna be on call, all that. So it's pretty much a split. He tries to guess, is it 50%, 50%, 30, 70? I think in this year's budget, he did 50-50. You know, he tried to be more exact last year, and obviously it didn't quite work out that well. So the fire department wages, and this is just covering the current wages that we're in a deficit. So the next 3 weeks, we'll have to do that one more time. But I want to have it exact. I don't want to say, oh, well, I'm going to need 10 grand and he only needs 5, depending on who's on call and who's working those shifts. So $94,742.28 is gonna come from his EMT wages. He also was looking to transfer some money to his departmental expenses, his fire truck maintenance, which is already in the hole, $7,200, and he needs another $2,000 or $3,000 for a bill he just got for a fire truck that needed to be repaired. And those are gonna come from standby, which, you know, because we were able to fund those second and third shifts, we didn't need as much standby pay, which I think in this year's budget, we decreased that. So the net of everything was only like 50 some odd $1,000 that he needed, but, you know, you won't need as much standby pay if you have, you know, round the clock coverage. So things in terms of, he sent me a list of items that he potentially was looking for, which is, where did I put it? Oh, here it is, his email. So, for instance, you know, the fire department and the ambulance workers don't get uniforms. They have to wash their own uniforms. So he's potentially putting money in there this year to buy them all uniforms, which we buy uniforms for highway and we buy uniforms for the police department. So he's anticipating some money for that for fire and police. I mean, fire and highway. I mean, fire and EMS. Sorry. And then there's money for some hoses that he's looking for. I have a whole list. I can give you this list if you want. He just sent it to me right before I got here. You know, CO detectors, pike poles, forestry hose, brush nozzles, those types of items. EMS, the same thing. There's uniforms and whatnot on there. You know, you get blood on a uniform, they got to go home and wash it themselves and then potentially not have it for the next day because it's, you know, all.
Yeah, I would think it's not so much
Well, it's,
having uniforms, it's actually taking that stuff home and washing it.
well, exactly. So that's what he's trying to get away from it. And I don't, whether you agree with people transferring money or not, I don't think that's a bad thing that they should get, you know, some sort of type of uniform. All the other bigger departments get those types of things.
I guess my
Yes.
question is, there's so many people on the fire and ambulance roster because he uses so many part-time people. How does he gonna, like, there's a list of like 40 people. The intention is not to buy for all of them. How do you make that decision?
Yeah, I'd have to ask him that question. I'm not sure how he would make that. I mean, some of this is, there's, you know, T-shirts, which is, he's buying 100 T-shirts at $10 a piece. Winter hats for the guys. You know, he's buying in quantities of 40 and 50 pieces.
Well, good point. I guess the chief would have to answer that directly.
You know, I mean, for instance, EMS, and on here he has 100 T-shirts, 50 collared polo shirts, 40 uniform shirts, 40 pants, you know, 60 regular caps, 60 winter hats, you know, those types of things. So, you know, each police officer gets $950 for uniform. The part-timers get $450 per uniform per their contract. We pay probably $5,000 or $6,000 a year to get the uniforms cleaned for the highway department. So I don't think it's extravagant in those terms, but
I think
you
what
know.
she's saying though is those
Yeah.
are regular
Yeah,
duty
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, they add up, and by virtue of the fact that we hear how infrequently some of these people were called to duty, I guess I'm trying to figure
Yeah,
out, we're equipping them. I mean, I'm just trying
Yeah.
to figure out how he's gonna make that decision, and it sounds like the decision is to just.
well, yeah, I
for
mean,
everyone on the roster.
well, I guess you'd have to ask, like you said, you have to ask the chief. My assumption would be, is the guys that work all the time are the ones that are gonna be getting those particular uniforms, correct? If you work one time, he's not giving you pants and a shirt because you're only working one time, you know, or two times, obviously. I don't know, I have to go back and look at the payroll of how often the same people, but there's the same people that work a lot, all the time, so.
So maybe it's, hopefully for a select few, he's got certain officers and all that, and certain firefighters and EMTs. Okay, any other questions for Vicki on this? Okay, so, can we have a motion to transfer the 230 8/6/94/17 as listed on Vicky's handout. Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
Okay. What's the discussion?
Do we not need the finance committee to review and approve before we do this?
No, you have to approve it, and then they have to approve it. Unless they're here and you have a joint committee, but they have to approve it and you have to approve it. So you can approve it.
Said it two different ways.
Yeah, it has to be approved by both committees.
So it doesn't matter who does it?
No,
Order
no,
can change.
That's
there's
what I
no
wanted to
order.
know.
No, there's no particular order. Does not, the state statute does not regulate that.
Yeah, they're
Okay,
they're
that's
just gonna verify the money is there like you said it is, yeah. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Okay. Thank you, Vicky.
Not
You
going
on
in.
here for town receipts policy too? or-
Yes, that's me.
Okay. Should we get your chair up there?
I got a microphone, I'm good. So in our financial audit, this is one of those items that had come up for the last couple of years, and it's one of those pieces that we tried to put together a whole financial procedures and policies manual. And so that's what was holding this up. We were trying to finalize the entire manual at once, which, you know, we were working on with Heather, and then we got away from it, and then we went back to it. And so now think I'm just gonna take pieces of them out at a time and bring them to you so that we could get some potential policies in place. So people can kind of, not that they don't already do this, you know, they don't already adhere to this, but I guess if it's written down and you guys approve it, you know, if someone says, well, I don't have to do that, I can say, well, yeah, here you go, because no one wants to believe me that we've had these in place for, you know, 20 years and whatever. So basically, this is just our procedure for bringing money into the town. So all deposits must be, all receipts must be brought into the treasurer. You know, there should be documentation in terms of the account number, the department. They should be numbered sequentially. It should designate cash or check on them. Certain instances, it should say who it's from, why we're getting it. And then the treasurer will sign off that they've collected that money. This is just a summary. And then that receipt policy, that turnover has to be physically brought up to my office, which is something the auditors requested probably 4 years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, so that I can double check once the treasurer enters those receipts in of revenues. I have all those forms, and I can check to make sure they're the right amounts and they're the right account numbers. And then after, when I go to do a bank reconciliation with her, I have to check that whatever we physically deposited in the bank for cash is what was actually turned in on the turnovers. So, you know, this just kind of lays this out of, you know, how we want to do this, what's requested and what's required of people in terms of, you know, what we need in order to process those turnovers.
So we're gonna need to take a look at this. Question quickly came up. It's under B, recording receipts. Says, and it's underlined, bolded, all monies must be turned over at least once a month. Seems like it's a long,
Well, unless it's over 300, right?
right.
Yeah. I mean, that's the minimum. Most people, if they get $1, they bring it to us. But, you know, if you have, you know, if you get multiple, like the building, not building, but plumbing and electrical, they don't come in every week.
No?
You know, because when they come in to do their receipts, they probably do them every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, but it's at least once a month.
Do they handle cash normally or just?
Not
checks?
usually, no. Usually all checks.
Okay.
We don't have a lot of cash, but people do pay cash. I mean,
The other question I had was under A, general receipts. Says no employee shall use cash on hand in parens awaiting deposit to treasurer for any personal business, even if the intent is to reimburse. So does that mean cash on hand can be used for town business?
no.
Should we put for any town or personal business?
No. We have petty cash on the books.
Right.
But we could use petty cash, like the treasurer has about $100 in petty cash. The school department, the lunch program uses petty cash. They have about $100, but they use it when they go to Big Y to catch something in a
But it's a specific petty cash.
Yes, yep,
Drawer.
yep.
This says cash, can use cash on hand, waiting deposit to treasurer,
Yeah.
so if I give you cash for something, it almost looks like they can use it for for business.
No, so maybe we should change that, so, yeah, it shouldn't be used for anything.
Right.
You shouldn't have money in your pocket, use it for your personal use, and then reimburse it later when like I need $20 from the treasurer, I'm gonna only give you 100, I'm gonna keep the 20 because I need to use it, but I'll give it back to you tomorrow.
Right, no. Yeah, so if you can just add that, it'd be good. Do the rest of the board, do you want to take time to read this between now and the next meeting, or what's your pleasure?
I would adopt this as written, except with the modification, with the understanding that we'll review it and bring it back at our next meeting. So at least there's something in place.
So put it in place temporarily, and then come back and either make it permanent or make changes to it?
Because I'm hearing we have nothing right now.
We have nothing written down.
We have nothing now.
Well, nothing written down in terms of, my office sends out procedures to people, because that's the kind of the way that it's supposed to go, so, which,
So we're going from nothing to this. So what do the rest of you think of
Well,
that idea?
and this conforms to what the auditors
Correct.
recommended?
yeah.
Okay.
So is everybody comfortable with approving this with the caveat that we're going to review it and come back and maybe make changes? Or do you want to hold it all till the next meeting? Somebody can make a motion.
Pretty straightforward. I don't have a problem with it.
Okay, so
I move to adopt this as written with the minor modification of personal business with a re-review at the next select board meeting.
Second.
Okay, just a thought, do we really need to have the re-review? I mean, because if nothing changes, then we don't have to review it again.
So we bring it up and forward, we do a review, say there's no changes, vote it as acted, and move forward.
Okay? Any other conversation on that?
Read through it, it seems to make sense, if it makes sense to Vicki and Ed. What I wasn't so sure about is this also was this also the document that included a lot of the other details around investments and such?
No.
It's just the
This is
procedure.
just the procedure for receipts, correct. The investment,
Comfortable with approving it tonight?
the investment procedure, Donna wrote that before she left, and I'd have to get that copy, and I'd have to bring that to you, I don't have that copy.
Okay.
Should
Which
we,
is basically,
We got a copy of it, but I wasn't sure, because it wasn't exactly on the agenda, but it followed the procedural document around receipts. But the receipts one seems pretty straightforward if it works for your timetable.
yeah, this is kind of the way that it should work,
But if
Okay,
other people want more time to review it, I'm fine with okaying it tonight with a final review, but I'm also okay with approving it tonight.
okay, well, any other comments before?
No.
Okay, so we have a motion, you want to say? I'm
No,
sorry.
I said, I'm fine.
So we have a motion on the table to approve it as written with the caveat that we'll come back at the next meeting and either make changes or
Leave it as is.
finalize the approval. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you for that, Vicki. Now, town investment policy.
that, I believe, when it was written, that was Donna had that, she worked on it with our financial advisor, so.
Yes, she did.
So this is on OPEB.
This is on OPEB investments, correct?
Just OPEB?
Yes,
Yeah, OPEB
Not everything
trust
else.
investment.
everything else.
Oh, because we have one for everything else. We
No,
have
this-
another one.
Are the allocations the same on everything else, or are these allocations?
I'd have to, I
unique?
would have to review it, I'm not
Yeah,
very,
this specifies OPEB specifically.
No, but I'm asking, if we have another one, are the allocations similar, and we'd have to check?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to
Did
get
you mean to
that.
have just OPEB on here, or do you want us to table that?
Well, there should be a policy for investments for OPEB and for all the other investments that we have, for all the stabilization, all the trust funds, all that stuff. And I know there's that document, I just have to get it.
Okay, separate ones then. So we,
It's not all separate.
Well, the OPEB should be separate.
The yes, but everything else is all regular investments, so.
So we can go
yeah.
ahead, review this and approve or whatever we need to do. Okay. There's 9 pages. I know I haven't had a chance to read it, have you?
Given the fact
It's
this,
not my specialty.
this has all been vetted a number of times in the past, so, and Vicky's presenting it, it's been through the auditors,
Yeah, actually,
So-
technically, I'm probably presenting this one, so.
so Ed's,
What, Ed?
I'm presenting this one.
Okay.
so I'd make a motion to accept it as written.
Okay, is there a second?
Second, well,
Okay,
just
so-
a discussion, I guess.
Any discussion?
I guess I have a question about the amount we have in the trust, would be one thing. And then I'm looking in here to see what the administrative charge is for them to manage it. Is that, it may be in here, I'm just sitting here.
Looks like any one company should not exceed 5% of market value.
Did you want to say something, Ed?
Pardon?
They're just asking Ed.
So, is there anything in here to address her concerns, Francine's concerns?
I haven't seen that document yet, or reviewed it recently, because we, like I said, we've worked on this for a year or so and kind of put it on the back burner, so.
Yeah, I would have to I will find out and let you know what our balance is in the OPEB trust.
Well, I can tell you what our account, what we have in our account.
About 75,000.
75, no, it's, and this doesn't include any interest that we potentially have earned over the past, April, May, and June. So right now, OPEB has, and that interest stays with that fund, 176,184.64.
And what % were we supposed to have in there recommended for OPEB?
We've been putting 25% in out of our free cash.
But we're trying to catch up, aren't we?
We're trying to catch up to our ARC, which,
I think it's $1 million, isn't it?
no, it's like 800, 900,
$900,000.
I'd have to look at the second report. The very
A
first
little off
actuarial report we did about 4 years ago was like $756,000. What the new one was that we just had done, or we're gonna have done this coming fiscal year, I don't know what that would
We're
be,
way
but it's probably around there.
Way far from
Yes.
what we're supposed to have, okay.
A little bit.
But if you're making progress, the state's not really gonna
Right.
hound you too much.
That was
Until
the
they
goal of
start
the tank.
hounding everybody.
Right.
When Boston owes you $8 million, you're, we're kind of the small fish in the
Yeah.
pot.
Well, we're showing progress is the key.
Yes.
So what would you like to do? I know you still have a couple of questions, Francine? or-
Right, and Ed said he would come back with that information.
Okay.
I mean, I have
mean,
those bank accounts upstairs, but I just don't have
No,
them
I
sent
mean,
out, yeah.
obviously, I'm okay with it, I just want to know a little bit, I'm okay with the policy perspective, but I would like to know a little more detail, like the administrative costs and all of that.
So are you comfortable with, we'll take a vote, approve this, and Ed will
Yeah,
get back to
I'm
you?
fine.
Okay, so any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So Ed, you'll just get back to us with those answers?
Yes, I will.
Thanks.
So I just have one more piece of.
Sure.
I guess I just want to make the board aware that any financial transactions that happen in the town needs to come through my office. So anything that, we are talking about CPC funds and the grant and borrowing from reserves, I need to know all that. I need to be involved in those conversations because I have to record all that on my books. I guess this stems from the fact that I don't know how or where but there's been conversations with the Wayne property on College Highway and creating an escrow account. I need to know about those things.
Well, yeah, I would
You know what I mean?
think-
Like, I need to know that the town has money somewhere. Like, I have to record all that information on my book. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there that you can't open up bank accounts someplace else. You can't do this transactions. I have to know all that information because I have to keep track of
The
it.
account was ever set up.
Well, I'm just saying, it can't be, we need to know about that. I need to know about that. The treasurer needs to know about that if that were to come to fruition
Right,
at
these are
some
all
point.
You would be
exploratory.
involved.
I'm just throwing that out there,
I
so.
think that was an error written wherever, but there was never an account set up.
Well, you know, like you said, just those types of things, I need to be able to know ahead of time so I know how to record them on my books, that's all. That's all I'm saying, with that and anything else. So I'm just throwing that out there, because I can't keep track of the town's money if people don't tell me about stuff, that's all.
I agree.
You know, it's part of my job.
Okay, thank you. Okay, discussion on master plan implementation committee. I think we put that on there because we really don't have the MPI committee in place. We want to resurrect it as part of the open space. So we need to, Ed, I'm gonna lean on you again, we need to notify all the appropriate committees that we want to put a meeting together to discuss ongoing committee and what we want to do with looking at the master plan as it relates to open space. So do we have a list of all the MPI committee members? More importantly, the committees that are on that, we'll have to send
Yeah,
something.
it's actually in the master plan, it has a list there.
Okay. So, so can we send out an email to each committee asking them to appoint a person from that committee to the Master Planning Implementation Committee? And once they do that, we can put a meeting together. We may want to do it with the board here, I'm not sure, as a joint meeting. But we
John,
want to get that back on
is
track.
it the intention that the members would come from existing committees? If there was a person who was on the master plan before and is no longer on a committee, are they welcome to be on the committee? Or are you looking for representation from existing committees?
Well, we had representation from the committee so that they could report up from their committee what they're doing on the master plan. So they would have to be part of that committee, but I don't know if there's any issue with having other people on.
Well, there were at-large.
At large, it would make sense, people that are interested.
Yeah, I think it calls for 6, just general
6 at large?
representatives, yeah.
So we'll put the list together and get committee people, but if there's anybody out there that wants to be on the Master Planning Implementation Committee, if you could get a hold of Ed and give him your interest, and Ed, I'm assuming they'll have to fill out an application to be on the committee?
I would say that would be standard procedure, correct?
Right, then we would appoint him. So anybody interested, please reach out to Ed. Am I missing anything on that? No? Okay. Number 17 on our list here, Teague Baker, resignation from Conservation Commission, but will remain as an associate. So, Marla, this is a person that's a full member, if you will, that's going to be an associate?
He resigned 2 meetings ago, but asked to become an associate. An associate member is something that we, the Conservation Commission, vote on. The Select Board does not.
Okay.
It's just someone who will do things maybe for us and help us out, but it's not a voting member. It has really nothing to do with the Select Board. And he just asked to stay in that capacity. Similarly, Bob Bartholomew didn't resign per se, he just asked to not be reappointed, but he also at a meeting yesterday asked to be an associate. Basically, they get copies on the emails, and Bob might still help out, will still help out with getting work done on the barn and might review something for us.
So Teague and Bob will no longer be on the Conservation Commission as a regular member, but you can deal with them as associates as you see fit?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions or thoughts on that, or? Okay. Tom Quinlan, Building Inspector, request to carry over vacation time. And he's not here. Do we have something in our packet, or?
Yes.
Did we go over that last week?
No.
The last meeting?
Item 19, and he's requesting to carry over 1 week's vacation time, 35 hours.
So I didn't see a reason why listed on the letter. Do you know why?
Just the difficult work schedule for this past year. Tom's been very busy with inspections and whatever.
Didn't he request a extension last year too? Yeah, he did.
Believe so.
Yeah.
So, thoughts on this? I mean, the regular rule is they should have a reason for it, and this doesn't have it. So for that, I think we should get something from Tom.
We also just reappointed an associate building person, didn't we, earlier this evening?
That may help, yeah.
So that maybe between now and the beginning of the fiscal year, they could take that time.
Well,
That's
not
only
very
2
long.
weeks
That's
away.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would think at the minimum, going forward, that'll ease that issue, for sure.
Right, I would think so.
But that was a reappointment.
Mhm.
So what would you like to do with this? Definitely need a reason on here just to have it for the policy, because I think we're sticking to that with everybody. So do we have any motions? We either send it back to him for more detail or deny it?
Do we have to do this prior to the fiscal year?
We do,
I would think
So if we don't do it tonight, then it's out.
Yeah.
unless we have a special, yeah. Well, we can make it, we can't make it contingent.
I move to grant him his carryover.
But, yeah, I'll second it for discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in favor of being consistent across the board, I mean, with explanation, and I think that's what's
Right.
missing here. But in light of the fact, I know we just, when did we increase his hours?
Well, we officially
Working
increased
hours.
his working hours at the town meeting. Was it
Okay.
January? Right.
Okay. So again, that was to afford him enough time to get all his work done and hopefully get the vacation time in at the same time. But, anyway,
I mean, is there a
I
comfort?
have no objections, I just
Yeah, I
want
think,
some information.
well, I would say if we do approve it, if it does go that direction, maybe we should put a note, reason would be nice. This way we can make a decision based on that, but.
I mean, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we approved the personnel policies about a month, 6 weeks ago. These rules apply to everybody else in the building. I just feel like we're just setting up other people in the building who have to follow the rules last year. He had an extension, so was aware. Last year, we had to ask him for another reason. So I just think that, I'm not hearing that there was anything unusual in anything. I mean, he got more hours, frankly.
Does this have to be approved by the end of June, or is there a way to,
Mark can share some PQP.
Yeah, first I recuse myself from this discussion for obvious reasons at the board meeting. It's definitely states in the rules and regulations it has to be extraordinary circumstances. And we remanded, we being the board, remanded the letter back to Tom stating that we wanted to have specific reasons, extraordinary reasons why he couldn't take it. Now, I think we all realize now this is not contract people, that's separate. But this really screws up budgets and so on and so forth if you're pushing this stuff into the next fiscal year. We did allow and approved, at least from my board, the Tom Gahn, because he doesn't have a water technician yet. They're looking for one. He's always down there every 7 days a week checking how much water we have in the tank. So we thought that was definitely an extraordinary situation. So when it came to us, we did approve that. But this one, we did remand back to Tom to get more information.
so you asked him for extraordinary reasons, and we
Yeah.
didn't get anything?
And he did submit basically that his hours changed and he got increase in the amount of time and he couldn't take it. I leave that up to you. I think that happened in you said January?
January.
So that's all I can tell you.
Okay, thanks. So, I mean, like Art says, we've got a policy and a procedure, and if this is all we have, the human side says, approve it, but the other side says people have to follow the rules, so I guess we'll see what the vote is. Any other thoughts on it? So, the motion is to approve it and allow the week to roll over, correct?
Mhm.
Okay? All in favor?
No,
Aye.
Aye.
No.
no. You don't play a good game of chess, John.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to go with the policy and procedure because it's been in effect, so I think I'll say no on it to break the tie.
I guess my concern is,
The motion fails, sorry. Go ahead. What do you want to go from here?
no, I guess my concern is in denying it, and it has to be approved before the next fiscal year.
Yep.
Once we get more information, and then, so that means we have to have a meeting, and I'm not voting yes because I don't want to have a special meeting to deal with this, that's not it. I just bringing that to people's attention, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, what we,
Encourage people to take vacation time.
okay, so if we don't get anything back with some extraordinary circumstances, then it kind of dies here. If we do, and you want to schedule a meeting just for that, there only needs to be 3 of us, so we can go from there. Is that viable?
Your chair.
Just trying to get a consensus here. Okay, so we're all set on that one. Next one's amendment to intermunicipal agreement with the city of Westfield for animal control services.
Could Ed explain to us what the amendment is?
Yeah, I'm not seeing it.
It's just an extension.
It's an extension of the term of the agreement.
That,
I
but
have,
it's the same contract.
Same
Yeah.
contract, nothing else has changed.
I have a lot of questions, though, Ed. Can we get any information about this?
What was that
No.
again?
It's an extension for 2 years of an existing contract that Westfield provides shelter for animals,
Right.
basically. But everything, the fallback is that Southampton pays for everything. And I'm just wondering, how often do we use it? Are the police and Board of Health happy with this arrangement? How much is coming out of our budget? Because according to this contract, if the owner of the animal doesn't show up, then we pay for every immunization, everything. I mean, it just sounds like we're the fallback for everything, and I'm just wondering, how much is it costing us?
Well, and I'd like to just also run by this. It says in there domesticated animals. You can read it 2 different ways, so it says the parties agree to the following protocol for all animals entering the shelter, and then below it, it starts to talk about domesticated. What I'm looking at is, I went through, I was talking to the town clerk, we were getting bills, we had a sick raccoon, it was $50, a stray rabbit, $100, it was overtime. I mean, these are all things that we get bills for, $100 for $50 for a fox. We had a well-being check, we have no idea what that was, after hours it was $100. So, you know, this all adds up fairly substantial, fairly quickly. So I think, I don't mind doing this for domesticated animals, but when it comes to wildlife, I think
Well,
it gets a little out of control.
It specified the animals, and it didn't say raccoon. In fact, it didn't say dog. That was one of my other concerns. It said cat, ferret, chicken, and something else. It didn't say
Right.
rabbit. It didn't say,
But we've been getting bills for these things. That's the
but
problem.
why are we getting bills? Like, what are they doing? They're housing them?
We're treating them.
They're treating them
They get a phone call.
because they're
and
injured?
I also got a,
The money comes out of the revolving fund from the licenses that we collect from the dog owners. So the town doesn't pay any of that out of the general fund, so,
And is there money that covers it?
yep.
dog licenses.
So it's
This.
always has a balance.
Yeah.
Sure.
We have, for the contract, it's $750 quarterly, and they bill us. That comes out of the revolving fund.
Right.
And then it has a list of their calls, and it's $50 if it's within their working hours. If it's not, it's $100 an hour. And we've tried to come up with some type of a mechanism that the dog owner would when they pick up their dog, that somehow they could reimburse the town for our portion. They have to pay a portion too. But that's been a difficult thing to do because they say, when I spoke with them last year, they said that that their attorney said that they couldn't do that. So I also spoke to, I think it was another municipality that does that, that also contracts with them. And they were going through the same thing as we are, you know, wondering why can't the owner reimburse the town?
For the actual quarterly amount or for when
No.
they?
Not for the quarterly amount is from
Yeah, okay.
the
But doesn't
town
it
to
say that
contract with them.
the owner of the animal does have to pay for all the immunizations and also
Right.
the boarding?
Right.
Yes, but if they come
Right.
after hours and they charge $100 to pick up a dog, they bring the dog back, they pay all their expenses, but the town's out $100.
That's correct.
So we have to pay still for the pickup.
So
Right.
that-
What role does our animal control officer play in this?
We have no animal control officer.
We have an animal inspector,
Inspector, okay, so that's just
Yeah.
barns.
so that's completely different.
Highway guys that were, we used to have 2 highway guys that actually were animal inspectors. They were certified and everything else, and they would get calls when there were stray dogs and all that,
They
but,
were animal control officers.
Yes.
They weren't animal inspectors.
well, I mean, animal control, that's what I meant, sorry,
There's two
yes.
different things
Yes,
here.
yeah, they were animal control, but they were certified, they would go out and pick up the stray dogs and all that, but they don't work here.
They
Let me,
They used to get a stipend for that too, so.
yeah.
Yes,
Let-
they
let's
would get
see.
paid at, yeah, but they're not here anymore.
Well, there may not be other choices per se, but I'm just wondering if the people, when their animals are picked up, are they paying what they're supposed to pay? They are, okay,
Which doesn't include a refund to us, that's all.
okay, for the 50 or 100, okay.
Or the other thing, if it's not a domesticated animal and they pick up like a fox or a squirrel or whatever it is,
Yeah, I got you.
you know, that, we pay for that. If it's after hours, it's $100. So do we keep it to, I mean, should we modify this for domesticated animals only?
Well, Charlie, can you say something?
Just throwing that out there.
Speak up, but I just want to tell you that right now it specifically says domesticated animals, including but not limited to, so I guess that means anything. Cats, ferrets, birds, lizards, and poultry. So like I said, it doesn't even say dogs.
But the sentence before that, if you read that,
The parties agreed to the following protocol for all animals entering the shelter. Domesticated animals.
then it talks about different things, but
Okay, well,
I don't know.
doesn't say raccoons and the rest of them.
I know, I just.
You had a comment, Charlie?
I did. First of all, I've been involved in this forever in town. This is the first time the town's actually entered into a contract to have professional services to deal with these situations. These situations take up a lot of time with our police departments as well as our highway departments. This has been a very good program moving forward to alleviate these issues in town. Now, I also believe that they should not be dealing with wildlife.
Right.
And we may want to look at modifying this contract that when we talk about animals, we put a statement in here that all other wildlife is not going to be reimbursed for. I would put something in that effect, but I would not look at trying to disassemble this whole contract, because I will tell you, this burns up an awful lot of time with police and everything else, trying to deal with animal issues in this town. And that's coming from an individual that back in the dark ages was the field driver, who had to go catch the loose cows in town and all the rest of that.
And as far as the payment, I remember when we had 2 people in the highway department, I think they were getting $1 an hour or something like that, and there was 2 of them.
$1 an hour more. than
More.
what
And you
Not
multiply
even a
that
buck an hour.
times,
But it was a minimum of 3 hours, I think, which is
Yeah.
what was in your contract or something like that.
but did they got $1 an hour for every shift that they worked because they were qualified, rather than when they just went out for the animals. So if they work 37 and a half hours, that was 37 and a half hours a week times 2 people, $75. You extrapolate that, and it's less than I believe this was. Did you have a comment?
If I could also add,
Janine, can you go to the podium?
We're
Because I
gonna
wanted to
get you
ask
up
you a
there.
question
Yeah,
also.
sorry.
the state does require that every municipality has an animal control officer, and I have to sign off on that every year. So that's, and like I said, a lot of municipalities go with them. They have done a wonderful job. I think we just have to tweak it a little bit. That's all.
And if I'm imagining it's the police that are they're the ones that are initially
They're
find
the
an
first-
animal or whatever. So is this gonna, is it a big need? How often does this happen? Maybe it's not even an issue. Even if there's like a few animals here and there, I'd rather them in the care of somebody than putting the police either in a difficult position or the animal for that matter. Is it that often?
We've had instances where people bring like an injured animal,
The
a
police
rabbit
Oh,
or
yeah.
an owl or
Yeah.
whatever, a fox. And either that or they call
Right.
animal
I
control.
dare to say it's a weekly occurrence in town.
It's
What does
Not-
the
not
report say,
weekly.
Janine? Is it common?
Yeah, it was very common. The past couple months, it hasn't been as common as it had been. But I think it's an issue that should be addressed.
And when it's dogs and cats and people own up to the animal, do they pay what they're supposed to pay?
They do,
They do, okay.
yeah. And also,
Let's make that clear, they pay Westfield for their costs.
Correct, right. They don't pay the 50 or 100, I get
right,
that.
and we pay,
Is
For the
there
call.
would anyone consider, when the licensing rolls around again for dogs and so forth, whatever the fee was for the service that they provided, the $50 or $100 be added to that licensing
for
bill?
the following year,
That would be a way of recouping some of the money, certainly not all
I
of it, but
wonder.
some.
I hate to say, but I think those people are all gonna sit and say, I don't have dogs anymore, rather than pay that
Right,
50
not
or $100.
licensed.
That's,
Yeah, what are you gonna do with a cat? Or a
well,
ferret?
that I know, yes. I'm just saying dogs,
This
part
is-
of the money.
This is literally a
Thought, yeah.
chase situation.
Let me ask you a question. How much do we pay out in addition to that 3,000 a year, roughly, to Westfield? Just get a sense of, are we talking about a small amount, or, I know it's a revolving fund, but,
would it be a couple $1,000 maybe?
so we're not
Yeah,
really
2,000,
talking about a
3,000.
lot.
So far, we've spent $6,300 year-to-date between the contract and whatever other ancillary.
So year to
Contract's
date,
3.
so that's 3,300 in addition to our, yeah.
I move to sign the contract.
Is that motion tied to taking out the wild animals, or just as is?
As is. Let Ed try to renegotiate the contract and come back.
Can I ask another question?
Mhm.
It also says that when the animal is euthanized, then we pay the bill for that. Is that something that happens often?
No.
No.
No. No. And just so that you're aware, when I do the dog license, when I process all the licenses, I give, our local police department has the lists, and also animal control does. So they know if a dog is licensed or not licensed, and they have to come in. That was one thing we added in our bylaws, was I wasn't pleased to see the same people having to go pick up their dogs, and we had to keep paying for it, and the dog wasn't licensed, so they would go and pay, and then there was no mechanism that they had to license the dog before getting it back. So now we have that in place.
Thanks.
So,
We have a motion on the floor. We should have a second if we want to discuss it more. Is there a second to accept it as is? Okay, so that motion fails. Do we have another motion?
Okay, just have a question. Convy Shaw, Jonathan Judd. You mentioned that the state requires us to have an animal control. So what does that mean? Does that include wild animals? That would be my only question. is in animal control, or is it only domesticated? Then I just, as a point of interest in negotiating the
Animal
contract.
control officer deals with domesticated animals. When you get into problem wildlife,
You call the
it's a whole
wildlife,
different license.
and so you call wildlife. So,
Mhm.
so we wouldn't, as a town, be obligated to pick up wildlife,
That's why I'm saying the
Yes.
contract should be,
modified for that
should
reason.
say that, because
Yes.
that's a whole
Okay.
different category.
Okay. And the other question is, could we, when you get a
Yeah.
notification from this agency that someone has picked up their animal, can then we send them a bill for the remaining, the $50? I mean, there's no way to force them, but could we send them a bill?
But who does that? What department?
Well, who would get the notification? Would you get it?
I'm sorry.
Who gets the notification? It's you? So it'd have to be out of your department to do that.
Well, they're paying for all those immunizations and for the each day rate. Why can't the person just be charged for the call too?
Okay.
The
I think
attorney
the
says
only
we
way,
can't do it?
I think the only way you can probably capture that money is if our policy says they have to have release from the, like, let's say the town clerk, to where they come and they would pay that $100 fee that it costs to get their dog.
Yeah,
Just like if the dog is not licensed, they can't pick
Right.
the dog up. If you tie that into the same thing. So if we had something like that in place and we specified domestic only, I have no problem with this policy.
yeah. And the other thing is, can we call anybody else for wild animals? Does it have to be Westfield? Is there a
Typically,
wildlife?
the town doesn't call anyone. That becomes a civil issue between the resident and problem animal.
No, if somebody
wildlife.
brings in an owl or some other animal that wouldn't typically go to Westfield, is there a wildlife service that would take care of the animal?
I believe it's U.S. Department of Ag would be involved with that. It's been a long time since I've worked that circuit.
I was wondering if instead of paying to take an animal there, which that's not really what they do, if we could call someone that's their, I don't want to make it more difficult for the police by any means, but
Well, Fishery and Wildlife in Hadley used to be involved with that.
Mhm.
But again, you're asking me about something I did 10 years ago.
Mhm.
I don't know what the different federal government agencies are doing now. But there is other mechanisms. It has nothing to do with
yeah.
this contract.
Okay, just because we're only one page into a three-page agenda here, can we have a motion that we accept the contract with the wording that it doesn't include wild animals, so that Ed could work with the Westfield?
Yeah, I will make that motion, and I'll also include that if somebody's dog gets picked up, they must come to the town clerk and pay that, whether it's $50 during the day or $100 at night.
But that won't be in a contract.
Yeah, that's outside the contract. That's a,
How do we, but we have to notify them in this contract that they can't release it until that is paid and released by the town clerk.
To us, not to
You know,
them.
we dealt with this before, and we determined that, so what happens on a Friday? The town hall's closed, and someone is ready to pick up their dog. What do they wait
Yeah.
until Monday?
They go to
So-
dispatch. Dispatch, they can pay, they can get a receipt from dispatch.
could we do it
We've
with
done
a,
that in the past.
could we
I
do it
wouldn't hold up
without
someone
that?
taking their dog from Westfield. I'm in support of getting the money from the person, but not necessarily holding up someone picking up their dog from,
So
the
could we-
town's not, if they're not able to do it.
So could we do the motion with the caveat for the wild animals, and then we could consider if there's a way we want to add that on in a plausible manner without holding the animals?
I'll at least go with that, yeah.
Okay, can we have a second?
I'll second that. May I ask Vicki a question?
If it pertains to this, sure.
Has this account ever been in the red?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye, amen.
I would
Okay.
like to find out, though, and I'm happy to do that, is to find out if there's another place that I would hate to have someone bring an animal down to the police station and then they can't call Westfield. What are they supposed to do?
Yep.
So I will call over to Hadley.
You know what? Call the dispatch and ask them.
There's an organization called Urban Wildlife that takes in possums,
Dispatch
raccoons,
probably already has that information.
Yeah,
wild animals.
probably.
They've been dealing
Well,
with
they're
it.
gonna have to
I'd call
remember
for
then.
birds.
So you'll look into that and get back
Yeah,
to
I
us?
will.
Okay, thanks. Okay, any other necessary business that can't await the July 10th regular select board meeting? Okay, we're going to PCFs, and we have a fair amount. Ed, can you tell me for sure that all these have gotten the required signatures?
Let me caveat that, and they have the accountant's signature and the PPPB's signature on all of them. What I did was, because of the fact that we didn't know when finance would
Finance,
meet
yeah.
next time, I pulled them out of the normal sequence loop, and rather than the select board getting them last, they've now getting them in between the PPPB and the finance committee.
Okay, so it has all the signatures except for finance at this point because of their inability to meet at last meeting.
And the select boards,
No, that's what we're going
pending
through
your
now,
action.
Yeah, okay. So, hold on, here we go. Okay, auxiliary police officer Eric Larson, part-time, additional position. He'll be in our FTO program for a few months. During that time, the training will be free and unpaid. So it's an unpaid position. Auxiliary police officer James Murphy, emergency, additional auxiliary position. There's no hourly rate, no pay, it's auxiliary. Okay, we got something from Barbara Golden in here. What is that related to?
Library director.
Like shifting.
It might,
If you don't mind, because this is sideways here. Do you mind?
Yeah. You sent an explanation.
Barbara Golden, Director, Library. We have an employee, Carol Goulet, who's retiring. Do you all have the budget and everything? So one of the PCFs is hers, I believe. Right? For Carol Goulet, PCF?
Correct.
Yes, resignation.
Okay, so because she's retiring after 26 years, the trustees and I have come up with a reorganization plan to better serve the library. Her position as technician, she's the liaison to CW Mars with any problems that come up, and she's only 20 hours a week. So problems come up when she's not there. For instance, with items people borrow, or with patron records, items that come from other states that people are borrowing, all kinds of problems. So we decided we better to have this position there more during the week, so that other staff doesn't have to try and figure out the problems when that person's not there. So Carol has 20 hours a week, a benefited position. So we took some of the hours, 10, to add to the current circulation position. And actually, we've been working on this for a while because Carol warned us she was going to be doing this. So we did new job descriptions for the PPPB in the winter. And so the technical senior technician is also circulation librarian. So this person will be there more to handle the problems, but also work the circulation desk. This person also does all the cataloging and processing for the books. So that leaves 2 hours. Part of the job is the website and social media. And so we wanted to give those 2 hours to the children's librarian, because that person is more able to do that kind of work. 2 hours to the director. The trustees have wanted to have the director position be 35 hours for quite a while. And then the 6 hours left from the 20-hour position would be the circ position. So those are the ways we divided it up. It comes out, we budgeted, Gloria isn't here anymore, but she and I worked on the budget, and it's exactly the amount of money that we were voted on, and no more benefited positions, just the one. And the budget's a little complicated because Carol's last day is August 22nd, I believe, so some of the positions are 44 weeks for this fiscal year, but
there's more money in the substitute line to take over for Carol's 6-week vacation. That can come down next fiscal year so that we won't need any more money next year either. Because Carol's a 6-week vacation person, and nobody else has that much vacation, and we won't need as much subs.
Okay. So it all falls within your fiscal 19?
Yes, it's exactly to the dollar amount.
It was all signed off by the PQB.
Yes, Art's
No
here,
issues there.
Vicky's here, they all signed off, yeah.
Excuse me, Barbara.
Yep.
Just one thing, this was some really great work, and I want to compliment
Thank you.
Barbara and the trustees that worked on this. They did a super job. It's one of the best I've seen.
Great.
I do have to do another PRF for the 6-hour job. This was quite a big packet, so. And then the other piece is, we did have 4 subs. We never replaced Michael Dean. So one of these PRFs is for a sub, and there will be another one because one of our subs is leaving. And so there'll be
that's in
2
the-
more coming.
That's in the future, okay.
But it's part of this plan.
Okay. Any questions for Barbara before we go ahead? Thank you.
The letter, though, from Carol does say that her last working day is June 11th, but the retirement, but it's officially August because of the vacation. Her vacation. Do you want to approve all these together, John?
Yeah, I'm putting them all together. I'm just
Okay.
going past the library here.
Okay.
A lot of paperwork backup, which is great. Just got to get by it. Okay. Next one, COA Director Joan Linehan. It's a benefited position, full-time. Change in salary wages is 26 hours, effective 7/1. So is this just a change in hours, Rini?
Well, I think it's a couple things. The money's coming out of the regular budget now, right?
Did you see my note? I wrote a note on the back of that before I approved it.
The back of it.
So, where my signature is. So currently, the PCF is for 22.5 hours, which is 7.5 hours out of the state formula grant, and 10 hours, right? No, 7.5, yeah, 10 hours out of the general fund. What the premise was that they were gonna take the money out of the state formula grant and move it to the general fund. But that's only 22.5, and that's for 26. So there's an increase in hours there somewhere. So,
You're not sure where?
well, I'm just, it's why are we increasing hours if we're trying to keep everyone kind of the same? You know what I mean? And I get that it's important and people need to do what they need to do, but I guess I'm just saying her PCF currently is 22.5 hours and this is 26. So if you're just moving the money from the grant position over, those 2 numbers don't equal.
So what do they equal if you add the 2 together, the grant and the regular?
22.5 is what's currently on her PCF. Now, she does get paid 4 hours from the FRTA, which isn't on her PCF either. So I think going forward, we need to put all funding sources on all PCFs. And so I don't know if that was what was included, but again, if that FRTA grant goes away and you give her those 4 hours in the general fund, then you're giving her 4 more hours for whatever. So just, that's my note on the back. That's what I wrote on the back.
We don't
just
have the
so
back of it here. that's
Oh,
why.
okay.
And the 26.5 hours does include the FRTA grant piece, so there'd be no more taking from the FRTA grant piece.
This just says 26 hours, so not 26 and a half.
Yeah, it says
Okay.
the 26 is
three-
kind
so
of, that's
3.5.
what's in the budget.
Yeah.
Now, previously, the finance committee said if the grant goes away, the position goes away. That's what was kind of what their premise was. Now, what if the FRTA, so if you're giving someone 4 extra hours to work on the FRTA grant and that grant somehow goes away, that person has 4 extra hours and they're not administering that anymore. You know, I guess that's just what I'm kind of wondering or worried about, or should we be consistent with everything else? I'm just asking the questions, that's all.
FRTA grant is going away. It's funded right now, I think it's $31,000. I think the intention is to get a department head off of grants. And so I think that there's an increase in number of seniors in town, and I think the intention is, they actually had to cut service of the van on Fridays in order to save on the amount of money on the grant. So I think the
was
intention
well
is
into
to
that
take
conversation.
the money of a department head in town and have them be funded by the town instead of grants. So I think that's regardless of the FRTA thing, but right now they did stop van service on Friday because they wanted to make it work between now and the end of the fiscal year, so they're not over budget.
I get that. I guess my whole point is that it makes it look like you're increasing her hours because her current PCF only says 22 and a half hours. That's what I'm saying.
Well, the problem is that, and I.
That's what she was hired for, that's what her
With
PCF
every
said.
department that has any grant money that includes wages or not, that the finance committee and the select board should see the entire package,
Correct.
which includes the grant money, even if
Correct.
it's not used for wages.
Right.
So.
But it should be on
This
the,
was, but so this has been kind of unrecognized by the town, even though the hours have been 26 hours all along. It's just that the town has not paid, it's not come from the town's monies to pay 26. They paid whatever it is, 22 and a half or whatever.
well, it's actually more than that, but that's a whole different story.
Anyway, but
Yeah,
I agree with you that we should see the whole package on every department, given this, with the sources of their revenue.
yeah, if you're gonna have a PCF, you should write every revenue stream that they're getting paid from, because I have a PCF that says 22 and a half hours. I get a payroll that says 26 hours. I would probably not pay that person because the PCF doesn't say 26 hours.
Right, but this PCF will say 26 hours if it's approved.
Yes, but I guess my point is if people know that the PCF says 22 and a half and it's 26, it makes it look like you're giving that person more hours when we were trying to cut the whole override budget. You know what I mean? I'm just kind of, I don't want people to get that misconception.
It is confusing.
Yeah,
But
and-
the other
and-
thing too is the other grant that is supposed to be funding this position, the services are supposed to go to the seniors in town. It's not supposed to pay the director. So the intention is to be able to provide more services directly to the seniors and have the town own up to a department head being paid in the operational budget.
So if we lose that grant, the services will be cut rather than the salary of the director, is kind of what you're saying.
Right.
But if part of that salary is to administer that service, then, you know, I guess I'm just
I guess
pointing
the
those
COA
points
would-
out, that's all.
COA would have to deal with that if the grant.
Yeah, the
was-
COA would deal with it, and we'll see what they recommend. But I don't anticipate that grant being, I
I'm
mean,
not saying
right now,
it's
it's
going to.
$30,000. I think if it's gonna get cut, it's still gonna, I mean, they're not gonna take van service away from the entire seniors. I mean, they're gonna, if they cut it, it'll be cut down, but I can't imagine it's gonna be eliminated.
Well,
I'm more worried about the state grant.
Yeah,
So it is in here for 26 hours, $20 an hour for full 52.2 weeks.
And actually, one of the things that, after Vicki and I talked about this, I went and talked with Mr. Lawrence, and we're going to have an effort to make sure that all the PCFs from here on forward actually do list all the funding sources, so we know what the total hours are. Because, yeah, you know, I've come up with a couple of instances where, okay, PCF might say one thing, but, you know, you take a look at it and it's, okay, person's doing this job, and this job, and it doesn't all add up, so.
And if it's not on a consistent basis, it's not really, you know, someone may work a few extra hours for something once in a while, but when it's consistent, you know, that's what their normal pay is every week. So I guess I just wanted to point that out to you guys, that it kind of needs to make sure that has everything on it,
I agree.
so, and it currently does.
Okay, so any more question on that one? Okay, now, next one is Steve Dudek, which I have a question on because I'm confused by it. The first one, it says emergency, circled, it has temporary checked off, has benefits checked off, has part-time checked off. So I'm going with what's circled 3 or 4 times says emergency, so it says resignation separation. And the name is Stephen Dudek. It says reason for change is Tom Futrell has indicated his desire to resign. I'm not sure how Tom Futrell and Steve Dudek come together on here. Ed, do you have any?
One was the old transfer station attendant, one is the individual that was hired to take over that position.
So Steve's gonna take over for Tom.
Tom's gone.
Yes.
He's been
He's been gone?
Yep.
Oh, it says has indicated his desire. Okay, so that's the emergency one. Then the next one is circled all over as temporary.
yeah.
Stephen Dudek, part-time benefits, is that accurate, Ed? Because it's temporary, so do we give him part-time and benefits? All right,
Yes,
benefits?
because this was my understanding at the time, 20 hours a week position, so it met the benefit
So that's
criteria.
Okay. Next one is Tom Goggin.
Water superintendent.
Yep, full-time benefits, reason for resident, COLA, it's a cost of living. Okay, here's the one that, for the water department, and they do have their ability to do pretty much what they want, but it's coming before us to give Mr. Goggin a cost of living adjustment, and he's the only one that will be getting a cost of living adjustment. Again, they can do what they want regardless of what the Board of Selectmen says, but do we want to approve this, or do we want to say nobody else got one and we don't think one person should get a COLA? I'm gonna leave that open for comments here.
I'm not sure we have a say. I will say that Matt got up in front of the town meeting and addressed this particular issue, and the town still voted in favor of
They
it.
did. They did.
Any other comments on it? Okay, so is there a motion? I'd like to take this one out separately, just so we'll have it. Can we have a motion to approve or disapprove this particular BCF?
I move to approve.
Okay, so Charlie's motion is moved to approve the COLA. Is there a second? Okay.
So it's not signed off by finance, by Vicky, by anybody. It's enterprise fund.
Right. exactly.
So are we supposed to be signing off on this? I mean, it looks like it's a FYI.
Well, again,
So-
there's not much we can do. I think the only thing we can do is make a statement saying we're supporting everybody that is not getting one. That's my personal thought, so a motion's on the floor. If we're not,
Yes, you did. And
May I have
and
the back
PPPB has also.
I was gonna say, because I did come up with Matt and Tom about it, so that's the background.
okay, so the motion dies. Do we have a motion to deny this request for a COLA?
No, I think I mean, if we follow how the logic here, it's gonna happen anyway, so whether we vote on it or not, the town voted and approved it,
Yeah,
We can't nullify a
so
town
we,
vote.
so it goes through, whether
right.
we approve or not.
I think my point is, do we want to make a statement saying, we didn't give anybody else a COLA, we're not going to support this?
Okay.
So is anybody,
The difficulty in that is if you want to look completely at apples and apples, I mean, the school budget has
Yeah.
things in it that, if it came in front of us directly, we may not have,
Right.
signed off on in terms of raises and other things. And the town voted for that.
well, this is here before, so I guess we can only deal with this, so we don't have a motion to approve, and it doesn't sound like we have a motion to deny it, so just
Goes.
pass it over, and, well, actually, we don't want to pass it over, we just want to, what's the right term for this, Ed, so it doesn't come back again?
No action.
No action, okay. There we go. So that one comes off. Now, we have library again, senior tech circulation, substitute circulation. Now we have town administrator, okay. Do you want to talk about it quickly, Ed, why I find it on here? No, okay, I've got it right now. Okay, assistant to the town administrator, replacement, copy of posting attached. Current assistant has resigned, like to replace, okay. Requested start date July 1, 2018 or sooner. $15.92 per hour, 16 hours per week. General fund, roughly $13,298 a year. Signed off by Ed and the PQB. Any comments on that?
Yeah, this is just the official paperwork to allow me to do what the board's already given me permission to do of filling the position.
And the last one is transfer station. It's just a PRF, replacement copy of posting attached, $6.94 an hour, 22 hours a week for $19,453.
I have a question on that. When it says up to 22 hours a week, is that benefited then?
Yeah,
It is.
yeah, 20 hours is benefited, yeah. Okay, so can I have a motion to accept all above except the one for the water superintendent?
I'll make a motion to approve all the forms pending Finance Committee approval.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Keep busy, don't get hit.
Yeah, we'll wait on that one.
Notice you got a
And-
small table, John.
Yeah, right.
And while we're talking about those, it has been brought to my attention that, and I'll fill it out for your signatures, that they would like a PCF for myself, which was never done.
Did
Okay.
you ever get hired?
I
Yeah.
am wondering if that might have been a nightmare or not, but
Don't give them an opportunity to get ours. Yeah.
It's all in the details, Vicki. It's all in the details.
Okay, so we're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep going so we can get this done. We have a one-day alcohol event checklist for Emily Powers, July 18th, 1 to 10 p.m. Location 85 and 158 Glendale Road. Wine and malt, check received, hold harmless, not on town property. Police chief has no issues, open to the public. Craft brewery or winery, looks like brewing. So this is for,
it's a picnic after a charity bike race, or bike ride, I guess, that they do annually.
To do the bike right after, I mean before.
Before.
Who's after?
who, what's the name of the organization?
That I am not sure of.
Okay, so it looks like you have everything filled out, all the forms signed off on.
Everything is in order.
Okay, so can we have a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thanks, Vicki.
Okay, warrants, Francine?
Okay.
I'm assuming you signed off on these?
I did.
Okay.
Okay, warrant number W 18-49, $742,236.72, which is the total.
Sorry.
That's okay. Second warrant, W 18-49A, in the amount of $27,400, and that was for the emergency temporary housing for the fire, what do you call that, trailer?
Yep.
Okay, 27,004. Warrant 18-49C in the amount of $119.97. I guess this, I don't know what the C stands for. Then the same thing, 1849V, for a negative $119.97. So one just canceled out the other, and Vicky's not here to explain what happened.
Miss entry.
Pardon?
He missed entry.
Missed entry, okay. Warrant P 18-50 in the amount of $285,278.07. And warrant PD 18-50 in the amount of $46,876.11.
Make a will we have to vote on this, or is it just
No,
reading the
it's-
record?
no,
Just a report.
just
Report, got it.
enter it into the minutes. Okay, next thing we have is the town special caucus warrant, and I'll read that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
please make the record show that I excuse myself for this part of the meeting.
For the caucus warrant? Okay. We'll wait till he leaves here. Okay, Town of Southampton, Commonwealth of Mass, caucus warrant, July 24th, 2018. To the Constable of the Town of Southampton and said county, greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of the Town of Southampton qualified to vote in elections and town affairs to meet at the Town Hall, first floor meeting room, 210 College Highway, in said Southampton at 7:00 p.m. on Tuesday, July 24th, for the following purposes. A, to elect a chairman to serve at the caucus. B, to elect a clerk to record the minutes of the caucus. C, to nominate candidates for election at the special town meeting, Tuesday, September 4th, 2018.
Election, not meeting. Sorry.
Town election, thank you. Tuesday, September 4th, 2018, for the following office. Selectmen, 1 for 3 years. Polls will remain open until 9:00 p.m. You are hereby directed to serve this warrant by posting up attested copies thereof at the Town Hall in said Southampton, and notices of the same usual places in said town 7 days at least before the time of holding said citizens caucus. Hereof fail not and make due return of the warrant with your doings thereon to the town clerk at the time and place of aforesaid meeting, given under our hands as blank day of blank 2018, Select Board, all our names. Any comments on that? We need to approve this?
So move.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. If Charlie's out there, you can ask him to come back in.
There you go.
Okay, minutes to approve. Regular Select Board minutes from May 22nd, 2018, and June 5th, 2018. Everybody get a chance to read them?
Yes, I did, and I'll make a motion, we approve them.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion on them?
Yep.
Okay,
This is the one of May 22nd.
okay.
I just want to make a correction. Under the 4th bullet point, it says Select Board assignments and liaison roles. Ms. Groden would like to table this. She made a recommendation to not have liaisons. That should say not have liaisons to department heads,
Okay.
due to having a town administrator.
So can we amend the motion in the second?
I'll amend it as mentioned.
And one other thing,
I'll second it.
under appointments,
Yep.
it says an attorney at the meeting suggested. Can I just mention that was Attorney Zadonis Kemp? Kemp
So-
is fine.
So amended to say Attorney Kemp.
Kemp.
Again, amended as mentioned.
Second.
Okay. Yep. So we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as amended for May 22nd and as written for June 5th. Any more discussion?
I have a question about one of the items on there, so it's not really, can I ask a question about like a follow-up, or does that have to
Can
be
we
an
just,
agenda item?
just approve this and we
Okay.
ask questions? So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So your question, Rini?
Ed, is there a follow-up to the, it says notice of charter communication to establish and adjust the basic service tier programming? Is there anything that, did we hear back from them?
Yes, we are officially a petitioner in
Okay.
that case, so
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
you're welcome.
Rini.
Thanks for reminding me.
Yep.
Okay, so calendar announcements, we've already taken care of that already.
There's
So-
one more minute out there.
June 5th?
We already
June
did.
5th, yeah.
Yeah, we did them both.
Did them both.
Oh. Okay, so can I just look at them a second?
So, okay. The 5th,
Okay.
you can have Jim sign.
Okay, so now we have open time for the public. See, most of the public has gone home, but is anybody there who wants to come up to the podium? Barbara, go ahead. Hi.
Good evening. My name is Barbara LaFlamme. I live at 20 Cook Road in Southampton. Earlier this evening, there was discussion about town finances, and it was mentioned that the town has a financial advisor. I'm wondering who or what firm is the town's financial advisor?
I don't have an answer to that. Ed, do you know? I'm not sure.
In what context? Are we talking
Yeah.
about the borrowing, or are we talking about the OPEB trust?
'Cause I
I
don't remember.
would imagine that it was about the borrowing,
Okay, that would be Unibank. Unibank,
Unibank.
Unibank.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
You're welcome.
Just want to make sure I gave you the right answer, so that's why I wanted to clarify, Barbara.
Well, you know, it has to do with asking the right question. If I don't ask the right question, I might not get the right answer. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay. Okay, seeing none, it looks like we're going into executive session. And there are 6 sessions, so I'm going to say we won't be coming back into public session. So executive sessions are going in under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A, Number 3, discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation. Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Number 3, again, bargaining or litigation. Mass General Law, Section 3821A, Number 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. This is in relation to 6 Coleman Road. Executive session under General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, again, strategy to respect the litigation in the matter of Regina Shea Sullivan versus Town of Southampton Selectboard et al. Because the chair has declared the discussing matter in open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position. Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Number 6, consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate. This is highway garage parcel and charter communications. Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Number 3, strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation. This is College Highway and former road properties. Have a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
roll call vote, please.
Groden, aye.
Mackey, aye.
Tishman, aye.
Martin, aye. Okay, going into executive session. Let's take a 5-minute break. And thank you, everyone here and at home.